Vladimir Putin is demanding that all unfriendly nations now purchase oil from them in the ruble, that it doesn't make sense for them to take US dollars or euro, and thus Europe will now have to buy gas from them in their own currency, and thus begins perhaps the end of the petrodollar. If you thought gas was expensive now, well, you're in for a surprise, man. It's going to get a whole lot worse considering Russia is a major exporter of fossil fuels, of energy, of gas, of oil. We also have to contend with a major food crisis, which is coming, and I hope you've been paying attention to this one, because Russia also exports massive amounts of fertilizer, which we are now not getting, and planting season is coming up. Harvest will be in fall. Food stores last about 3 months, so we'll see how this plays out. Hopefully, it is not the apocalypse, but things may be getting crazy. The New York Times is writing about smaller nuclear weapons, which could make a nuclear war without ICBMs blowing up a whole bunch of cities, which is basically what I've been talking about for some time. We've also got a story about Redditors posting their location in Ukraine, volunteering for the Foreign Legion, and getting all of these soldiers killed. So, man, what a day. And of course, we can talk about Patreon banning Sydney Watson. Joining us to talk about all of that is a couple people. We got Elijah Schaffer.
We are back in the studio, Tim. I am happy to be here. It's been, like a year since Black Lives Matter and Antifa were burning down your neighborhood right outside there. And they're back, by the way. Did you see that?
We're in
they're
West
back?
Virginia. I mean, I guess technically D.C. is not that far away.
Yeah, but I meant so we're back. I feel like it was time to be back on the show because Antifa is back. You saw Vice News said tiny dicks are back in fashion. They actually, that was on their news channel. They said they're back in fashion. This was a news headline. Tiny penises are back in fashion. And according to old Western tradition, like the Statue of David. And I thought check this out. It makes sense that Antifa would be back in action because if tiny penises are cool again, then Antifa would have to be cool again. So it's like they're both one and the same. And I'm happy to be here, dude. I'm happy.
I mean, it sounds like they're proud of it, though. You know.
Oh yeah, they're very very proud.
I mean,
of
it actually kind of sounds like some kind of like sour grapes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I just said this. I go, you know what? There is the correlation, but I feel like I always say 2022 now feels like 2018 all over again. It's like we're back to talking about transgender issues. Antifa's back in the news. We're paying too much for gas. I mean, I don't know what's going on, but I feel like we've hit the arc. We've gone full circle, and we're just back to the same issues.
You see Joe Biden mentioning the fourth turning the other day? We'll talk about that stuff towards the end of the war. But so what do you do? I think most people know who you are, to be honest. But what do you do for a living?
Well, to all the haters who wanted me to get arrested for being inside the Capitol building, guess who just got their press license renewed from the Capitol building today? So it looks like things are still good there. I'm a journalist, reporter, and I also run a podcast called Slightly Offensive, and also a podcast called You Are Here that's live every night. It's been a ton of fun and a ton of craziness, but guess what? I'm out of retirement because things are crazy again. So we're back to reporting. We're back on the field. That's why I'm in D.C. And
just got back from Ukraine, I hear.
Yeah, so this is kind of crazy.
I'm joking.
Dude, it's not the Ukraine you were thinking of. It's the Ucluck. So your Chicken City account downstairs, the live chicken farm that's now on that YouTube channel.
That's right.
I was in Ucluck and I was like trying to figure out what I was gonna do. I was trying to make sure I saved the Ucluckians, and then I guess what? Who I saw?
Who?
The ghost of Chicken Kiev.
Oh yeah.
He was flapping and saving all the little baby chickens and
he took out six chicken hawks.
He did. Yeah.
He took out 6 chicken hawks, and then they shot out his wing with the little pellets, the chicken pellets. But then he got another bionic wing and sort of like saved the day. So I'm feeling optimistic for Western chicken society, and there's a lot of chickens in our society now. We've seen a lot going around. One of them's running the country, so I'm happy to be here.
And you have someone joining you today.
Oh, the beautiful, the lovely, recently banned on Twitter for telling too much truth, Savannah Hernandez from Rapid Fire Podcast.
Elijah Schaffer, long time no see. It's just like, 2 weeks ago I was producing your podcast. Now we're here on Tim Pulled Together. Tim, thank you so much for having me. Yeah. I am so excited to be here. I've always wanted to come on your show. You actually used to follow me back in the day when I was doing riot reporting. Then I got deleted off the face of the earth, so I was never able to prove myself to you. So I decided to start another Twitter account, right? Because I was producing for Elijah Schaffer, worked with Alex Jones for a while. Then I was like, let me focus in on the independent reporting, really go all in for 2022. It's election season. Got banned again. So it's a lot of fun out in these streets, trying to tell the truth.
Well, all right. Well, of course, Ian's here.
It's like running through a fire. And if you don't run fast enough, you start to get burned. Just keep running.
Oh, yeah. Keep going.
Yeah.
Don't stop.
Move. And hold your breath while you're doing it. You just don't have to breathe in. You just breathe out when you need to breathe out. You actually absorb the oxygen through your skin. Lydia, I have a gift for you.
Yes.
Oh, what is it?
What's the gift?
I have two gifts for you to choose from.
Oh, cool.
What color do you like?
Dark blue.
Well, it's purple.
Oh, it's purple. Oh, cool.
I guess it's a kind
This
of
is
dark
how we
blue.
found out
This
she's
is a,
colorblind. You know, you
this is
said
a 100-sided
Oh,
die.
you said so. I didn't get a gift, so I'm feeling a little bit
No, I
left
didn't know you were
out.
coming
Left out.
tonight.
Well,
You can hold this.
I can
can
come
hold
any
it.
night. There you go. Oh,
Let me know what you
That's loud.
roll.
you said that you wanted
I've
to prove
never
yourself.
seen dice with so many sides
I know,
before.
it's
You
crazy.
want to prove yourself to Tim, and
Yeah.
I taught you well. Prove yourself to the white man.
With
There you
what,
go.
What do you mean? How so?
All you've wanted was my approval, and I'm telling you right here on the show, I always accepted you.
Thank you so much. All I've ever
glorious.
wanted
That's
was
so-
a
so
white
honorable
man's
of you.
approval. Now I'm surrounded
That's
by
all
white
she's
people.
wanted. She said, as long as
Beautiful.
white men approve me, that's the narrative. As long as
True,
they
it's
approve you,
true.
you've made it in
That's
life.
Savannah, here's
That's
another
how it works.
100-sided die for you.
There's
Thank
so
you,
many
thank
to go
you.
around. Anyway,
Oh my
I have my
gosh.
purple dice now. I'm very happy. I'm here in the corner pushing buttons as I always am. Let's get into this ad.
Before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, we have an amazing sponsor of tonight's show. It's the Daily Wire. In the description below, you will see the link to the Daily Wire's Fighting the Enemy Within, China. Use promo code TIMPOOL for 25% off of membership to watch The Enemy Within. The tagline, what if everything we think we know about our leaders, our society, and our relationship with the rest of the world is wrong? Acclaimed journalist, expert in national threats, and writer of The Plot Against the President, Lee Smith, uncovers a political coup orchestrated by America's political corporate and media elites to generate wealth, power, and prestige at the expense of the safety and freedoms of the American people. We are big fans of the Daily Wire here. So if you click the link in the description below, you can get 25% off your Daily Wire membership to watch this series using promo code TIMPOOL. Shout out Daily Wire, guys. You guys have been doing an amazing job. They used actually one of my videos to promote their product, Jeremy's Razors. So I think what they're doing is absolutely fantastic. I'm totally jealous. Again, check out the Daily Wire promo code TIMPOOL. But don't forget, go to timcast.com. Support us directly if you want to watch our members-only podcasts. We put them up Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m., so we'll have one tonight. And as a member at timcast.com, you are keeping all of our journalists employed so they can write articles every day about news you can use, things that you care about. And we do a lot of fact-checking, a lot of aggregation, and a lot of original reporting. We have field reporters, on-the-ground reporters, and we are going to be hiring many more reporters as we are actually looking to hire a couple more people. And I think we're actually bringing on 2 more employees, thanks to all of you helping make this company grow. And we're building our new headquarters as we speak. That being said, you must smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, and share the show with your friends if you really want to help. Let's read this first story from the New York Post. Ladies and gentlemen, Putin demands unfriendly countries use rubles to buy Russian oil and gas. Russia was hit with crippling economic sanctions after it launched a massive military campaign against Ukraine a month ago. But efforts to isolate Russia economically are complicated by the fact that the European Union is dependent on Moscow for oil and natural gas that is used to heat homes during the winter. With the financial noose tightening and the European Union split on whether to sanction Russia's energy sector, Putin hit back with a clear message. If you want your gas, buy our currency. Russia will continue, of course, to supply natural gas in accordance with volumes and prices fixed in previously concluded contracts, Putin said in a televised meeting with top government ministers. Imagine being NATO and the EU and not seeing this coming. This is Joe Biden's efforts. I gotta blame Joe Biden for this one. I mean, this is his administration in the United States. Very much so the U.S. leads NATO. Vladimir Putin effectively getting off the petrodollar, requiring Europe to buy oil and gas in rubles. It's breaking the one thing the United States actually has control over, or what the one thing that we actually get value out of, and it's that we control our own currency, which we make everybody buy to buy oil. So this is going to be a global fracturing. A global parallel economy is emerging. Already we heard that Saudi Arabia was in discussions with China to start buying oil in yuan. Threats of World War III, chaos, prices going through the roof. How you guys doing?
I was gonna say, it's part of the plan, definitely. I mean, besides inflation and like the supply chain breaking up, and there's transgender swimmers beating out women, and we're having gay pride parades in children's schools, teaching them how to tuck their scrotum to their butthole, and children's medical hospitals. True story.
Big sidestep from Vladimir Putin and gas prices.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, besides all that, obviously, the best thing that I've heard all year is that our money might lose all of its value, and it might actually be worthless. And I know this is on purpose because, I mean, if you think about destabilization of Venezuela, talk about the invasion of Libya, you even talk about a little bit what was going on in Syria, and what happened in Iraq, when leaders try to take the oil trade off the US dollar, if they try to do anything, right, the global currency or the African currency in Libya, I mean, you end up getting sodomized and murdered in your own country.
Saddamized.
Yeah, Saddamized, hung. Yeah, I know. You get hung. You get let out. And so, I mean, if for the last like 100 years, especially the last few decades, if somebody tried to do this, we basically just wiped them out. It makes me wonder if we're going to allow this to happen, specifically not just with the ruble, but also with Saudi Arabia and specifically the yuan in China. Is this part of Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum idea to sort of destabilize one empire and create a trifecta in this movement?
People give that guy way too much credit. I think he's a bad guy. I think
not him, but the World Economic Forum is an agreement among nations to kind of see us, like a lot of bureaucrats, specifically like in Washington, obviously don't see America as the greatest country in the world. We're like a country, and there's this movement towards a central currency.
Haven't you read about the liberal world order?
The liberal world order.
Yeah. You're not familiar.
Enlighten me.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
Yeah, I'm like, so there's another world order that we need to be paying attention to.
Too many
here.
world
Well,
orders.
no. You need to understand, when they're talking about the New World Order, they're talking about the end of the liberal world order and the emergence of a new world order. So this is the Council on Foreign Relations website, certified by NewsGuard, 100 out of 100. What is the liberal world order? After World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, countries sought to ensure the world would never again devolve into such horrific violence. World leaders created a series of international organizations and agreements to promote global cooperation on issues including security, trade, health, and monetary policy. The United States has championed this system, known as the liberal world order, for the past 75 years. During this time, the world has enjoyed unprecedented peace and prosperity. I would dispute that last sentence, but I wouldn't dispute everything else they're saying. The Council on Foreign Relations overtly says, after World War II, global cooperation from powerful world leaders creating international organizations sought to secure the planet, creating policies on security, trade, health, and monetary policy. When Joe Biden says that there's going to be a new world order, this is what the new world order means. When Bush said it, when H.W. Bush, when Clinton, when Hillary Clinton, when they all say this, what they're saying is the liberal world order will come to an end and there will be a new world order. What's that
Tim?
Specifically called? I don't know.
This rhetoric is the exact same rhetoric that you read in the UN's Agenda 2030. I actually printed that out. I was reading through it. This is the exact same type of thing that they're trying to propose, right? This utopian-like society where everything's great and we have all of these organizations that are helping the world, pushing peace and prosperity. But in reality, we see when put into practice what this actually looks like. Look at our streets right now. Look at Democrat-run cities, if you will. Look at liberal policy actually put into play. Our entire country is in decay. We're deteriorating from the inside. We have a president in office who is incapable of even forming a coherent sentence. A lot of people say that Joe Biden has, done a horrible job as president. Well, he's done a great job of one thing, destroying this country in record time.
Yeah, he did it really quickly, huh?
Yeah,
really
quick.
quick. Really
You got to give him
fast.
credit for that. I mean,
Yeah,
wow.
it's
It feels like it was tipping, and then he stepped into the pilot seat just as it fell off the ledge. Although they did oversee the printing of like $7 or $8 trillion in the last year and a half, which is terrible policy.
A little bit problematic, I would
You
say.
ever watch
didn't spend
Mr.
it on-
Magoo?
I call my dog Mr. Magoo.
You know Mr. Magoo, like he can't see, and so he's like bumbling around and like getting into all sorts of shenanigans. He's like an old man.
Oh yeah,
that's like
big bulbous nose.
Yeah, that's like Joe
losing his
Biden.
glasses.
Well, don't you feel though when you hear this that we've all been sold a lie? And I even got duped into this, being from Los Angeles, like actually born and raised in Southern California, right there. That there was this sort of lie that we were sold that is clearly unraveled now, that you could have this sort of liberalism in this mecca, that you could have your cake and eat it too. Like you could have money, you could have freedom, you could have immigration, you could have multiculturalism, and you could kind of create this bastion of utopia smack dab in a desert, right? Even your water, even though you don't have natural water sources, right in LA. And as we've seen it divulge over the years, or develop and also then decline, is that it didn't end up really working that well, because obviously when you have all these cultures together, they ended up self-segregating. LA is one of the most segregated regions in the country. It is insane. It is to the point where you can like tell you where the Jews live, where the Mexicans live, where the El Salvadorians live.
Go to
like
Chicago, go to New York.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying but I'm saying it. It obviously is touted as being diverse, but it's really segregated. Then the wealth disparity. There's a shrinking middle class. I mean, and the confusion. The laws are not enforced. It's pretty absolutely crazy. So I feel like genuinely this liberal world order, like you said, that they're doing away with, is an interesting way to get people complacent. Because when you create a liberal society that's not based on tradition or nationalism or values, but this idea of personal liberty, individualism, you start getting into your pot of choice, your vices, you get into your porn addictions, you pursue your career rather than family, and everyone is just kind of like fighting. They give up their guns. They're not focused on things like self-protection and gathering and self-sufficiency, etc. And then we end up kind of complacent.
There's a contradiction in there. I mean, people who believe in individualism and civil liberties don't give up their guns.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It literally was a deception, because that's what I'm saying. They gave us this form of liberalism, this absolute kind of their developed form of like, you can have peace in your countries, the wars won't be fought there, you can make a lot of money, things can be really good, your kids can all go to college. And then once we were all in these places, everyone's on anti-anxiety and antidepressant pills. People are unhappy. They're not satisfied with their lives. If you look at how happy people are, they're not full of joy. They're not content. They're not satisfied. We're very divided. And now we're all in this place where we don't have anything to unify us. We don't have a common religion. Not even really a common language, because I'm not talking about Spanish. Like, have you ever heard someone under 16 talk?
Not lately.
I can't tell what they're talking about.
Yeah, but
like
it's like most generations.
Leet speak.
Yeah. I just meant they divided us, so then they used it to weaken us.
Leet speak is a millennial thing, dude.
Yeah.
Wait, what is this?
Yeet speak.
It's
maybe.
L33T. Leet speak. It's just the way you type like words faster with numbers.
1337, Ian.
Oh, interesting.
1337. My fault.
Yeah, but that's an internet culture thing that goes back a long time. I mean, if you're talking about the slang terms used by kids.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, though, is that language is changing in a way where it's like each generation can't even effectively communicate with each other, not just through language, but through the mediums are changing so rapidly. Even look at the app development and app usage based off of age range. I mean, we are divided and categorized to a point to where it's the perfect time to where we can't even agree on basic things, like on, people are still divided on what happened in 2020. People today can't even agree on the most basic science on what is a man, what is a woman. It's a perfect opportune time to retire the current liberalism and then institute whatever the hell you want, because we're too divided and too weak and complacent, I believe, to really effectively fight anything. Like, I don't think there's anything to fight for, or like we don't even know what we would be fighting to preserve.
There's a great meme right now where it shows the clip from the World Economic Forum saying you will own nothing and you will be happy. And then it says, journalists say the Great Reset is a conspiracy theory. And the next one is the Bloomberg article saying, give up meat for lentils.
Let your dog die.
Let your dog die.
Yeah. And you know what, Elijah?
And then people are like, you will own nothing and you'll be happy.
I wanted to hop in on what you were saying, too, on the entire manipulation of our language. So he and I were actually having a conversation on the way up here. And it's kind of insane how we now are saying biological male or biological female. Now we're saying actual science as opposed to what the left's version of science is. The language has been so manipulated now that, like Elijah said, in the common day, we can't even decide on what basic science is anymore.
Well, I kind of disagree. I think what happened is you have like American society moving up, and then at some point the left started budding off like some kind of fungus. Like, I mean that, like, I don't mean that as disparaging. I mean literally like fungus buds and then separates.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Like, so people who are in the middle or on the right, who believe, words have meaning and, history exists, stayed going down the same path, following history, following the lessons of our ancestors. And then this new group of people split off, and they have a different language. They have a different worldview. They believe crazy things.
Different reality, really.
Totally different reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not, if you were to say that language changed, it would be to imply that those people have legitimacy. Now, I certainly think they control institutions. I certainly think that they
How's it not legitimacy, though? I mean, if you have power, that's what's kind of cool. Like,
well, that's their mentality. There's no truth but power. I disagree. I think they're completely illegitimate because they make up random words that are meaningless. And you ask a Supreme Court justice to define woman, and just, I can't. And I'm like, okay, you're illegitimate and incompetent if you can't define a basic word. The same woman who said, I can't define the word woman, literally a minute later said, Roe v. Wade is about a woman's right to terminate a pregnancy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You just said you didn't know what it was. You couldn't define the word.
Tim,
now
it was so baffling to me because, again, I covered the NCAAs last week, and there was pro-LGBTQ protesters there, standing up for Leah Thomas. And I'm standing there talking to these college-aged kids, and it's such a surreal moment when you have someone look at you in your face and go, yes, a woman can have a penis. Yes, men can get pregnant. And yes, men can have periods. And again, this is rhetoric that we've seen time and time again. This is nothing new. But actually hearing somebody say that to you, to your face, bold face, completely believing it, just shows me how far gone we've become, like, as a country, to where there's no basis in reality at all anymore.
This is why people talk about national divorce. It's why they talk about civil war. It's not so much about, look, I don't care. Those people can believe whatever they want. They can watch whatever movies they want to make and do that. And then what do we get? We get the Daily Wire making their own razors. We get the Daily Wire making their own movies. We are certainly interested in moving that direction as well with our own cultural content. We just need to stop trying to be a part of their club. That's one of the most frustrating things to me. Like, I don't care if these people walk around thinking that they're, clowns juggling bananas. Like, that's cool, dude. You do your thing, man. I'm going to be hanging out here with my friends, like having a beer and playing guitar. That's our thing. You do your thing. Yeah. But the problem is conservatives keep begging to be in their club, and they need to stop doing it. Republicans do it all the time. They freak out because right now GOP racist is trending on Twitter. It's like, so what? Who cares?
They're so weak and pathetic. There's so many spineless rhinos in our Congress right now, in our just political space as a whole. They're so spineless. They're so pathetic. And the reason why conservatism as a whole has completely deteriorated is because people like Matt Schlapp, who's supposed to be the creator of the Conservative Political Action Committee, is coming forward and saying, oh, Leah Thomas's journey, we really need to have empathy about it because, her story is important. Are you freaking kidding me right now? Conservatism is pathetic in the modern day.
Well, it is. I agree with that, but I also agree with what Matt was saying. If these women at the NCAA don't care to speak up, if none of their family members will speak up, then they deserve whatever their experience.
But see, that's not what Matt was saying. Matt was saying that he thinks that we should have empathy towards Leah Thomas. I completely disagree. Again, I'm not a female athlete. I'm not the one that should be protesting. You and I were actually talking about this before the start of the show. Why did these females even compete with Thomas? Why didn't
because
these
they
females?
Like it.
Sav, it's because you have to be at least this tall to play professional sports. So
this really this is one of the most frustrating things to me, because the NCAA women have publicly come out and agreed with Leah Thomas and supported her. And the only person who didn't, the only person so far to come out complaining, is the person who got bumped by one space. 16th
so did your teammate,
place.
But that got deleted.
What teammate?
So that is who I interviewed last week. That's the news we broke. Tucker Carlson played it on his show. Her teammate, Rose Pouch, she spoke out on behalf of her, said her teammate was crying.
Oh, right, but she
wasn't
17. In the finals either, right?
No, she was in the finals. She got first place in the 200-yard free. She spoke out against Leah Thomas because she watched her teammate cry as Thomas took that final spot. Again, I can't pronounce her name correctly.
Rekha Georgi?
Yes, that's her name. She was a fifth-year
well, I can respect
senior.
someone coming out and actually speaking up.
Yes, so that's what
men.
I'm saying, Tim. So it's like, it's not that all of these athletes aren't speaking out. It's that they're being completely silenced. Now, we made national news with that. It's completely been deleted off of Twitter. You can't find it anywhere. All of the national news articles that were linked to her interview, completely gone now.
Well, the point in this that I want to bring up is, first of all, Matt Schlapp saying that we need to have empathy on this person's journey, who, by the way, has a clear and present bulge, actually bigger than mine. So I'm taking some notes here. But I will say, that's completely crap. And conservatism definitely is in the position to where people are fighting to conserve things that do not exist and have not existed for some time, including this entire country for at least 100 years, as they've been we've been developing into some crazy globalist empire. But with the specific thing with the swimmers, I don't think it's enough to just say like it's their fault, because we've gotten used to everybody in every field, in every department and institution. We already assume they have to be activists because everybody seems to be one. Journalists are activists, professors are activists, and now we're saying, look, there's people who just want to swim. They do not want to get involved in political things. In fact, one of the greatest things I have found and has kept me sane has been lifting weights, getting back in shape. And I go onto Twitter and I put like one thing up, like, yeah, hey, I did my 5x5 at 225 on chest. I'm excited to hit a goal. And there's all these bros that get in there that are like, oh, man, what's your squat? What's your this? What's your that? And I'm like, dude, you're complicating something. I picked up heavy things. I put them back down. Yep. I know there's a science to this. I know people get really involved. I'm not doing that.
Where are these girls' dads?
There's a point to be said to this, though.
Good question, Tim.
But there's a point to be said.
That's why I don't care.
No, but here's the point. What you're asking for, and I'm saying this genuinely, some people, I know people that are into swimming, for instance, and they just do it to clear their mind. They do it to get their mind off the world and focus on the goal.
I don't
Tim,
know. What's your point?
My point is, as I'm saying, people always try to complicate things. A lot of these swimmers are put in a tough position. That their scholarships might ride on this. They might come from impoverished families.
Too bad.
Listen, and maybe when you're focused on breaking generational like wealth gaps, and you go to a nice school and you're trying to swim and get your family out of that poverty, that idea of getting out of poverty is more important to you than a social issue like transgenders, and you don't know what to do. So what's happening in our world is no matter who's out there, we are demanding of them to be political activists. What should be happening is this discussion should be happening at a senior level with administrators and with individuals who are put in those political positions to try to debate whether something is ethical. But the swimmers themselves, I don't blame them for not knowing what to do, because like that girl who was scared, these are genuine people who are going, even if I speak out, will it change anything? And they can't afford what you and me
that's
do.
what it
No, we're stopping right there, bro. I am sick and tired of hearing about spineless people who don't stand up for themselves, who think they're entitled to everything. That's one of the big issues I have with the left. They come out and they say, we should get free college, we should get free that. I shouldn't have to do anything for it. These swimmers won't come out. Their dads won't come out. Their moms won't come out. Now, there was one woman who spoke anonymously, and then you come here and you say, they don't have all of this. Bro, not only did I come from the gutter, but I've consistently stood up for my values. I've had people on this show who have been censored over and over again. And I know there are hard limitations because there are certain things that's difficult for either you or I to talk about on our shows. But I quit a corporate gig. I tried to break a contract worth millions of dollars because they wanted me to do woke BS. Now, for me, I'm not saying anybody has to have my back on that. I'm saying I take care of myself. I don't think I'm entitled to or owed anything. So when I'm at a company and they say, you want the money we're paying you? We have you under contract? You're going to do woke stuff. I said, no, I won't. And they said, well, you better. And I said, I guess I'll just sit here or you can break my contract.
But
they
you're
said
a political
no.
commentator, though.
Can I
was
jump in
not
with this
a
too,
political
Elijah?
commentator when I worked for ABC.
To some extent, though, but you're in the visuals. You're into somewhat of entertainment. Like a lot
No,
of these people
bro.
are just athletes, and they're like, dude, I didn't ask for this. Like, I don't want this.
And that's what a lot of
and
the
they're
athletes were
trying to
expressing
figure it
too,
out.
Elijah.
I said we got to
is
give them some
that
time
they don't
to figure
want
this
to be
out.
political activists. They want to be able to just focus on their sport. I completely agree with what you're saying, Tim, but I also think that this is your passion. This is your career, right? Swimming is those girls' passion. They don't want to be political activists. The big reason why their parents don't want to speak out for them is because the daughters ask the parents, hey, you know what? Just don't do it. I don't want to face the repercussion. I don't want the NCAA coming after me. The NCAA told these athletes, don't mention Leah Thomas's name in the locker room. Do not speak to any media. So the fact that I even got that interview, that's why it went so viral, because the NCAA has been silencing these women. I understand what you're saying, Tim, because I'm the exact same way. I'm hardline and I say, stand up for your rights, stand up for your country, or you will lose everything. But at the same time, we do have to remember we're in this spot because not everybody is a political activist, unfortunately.
That I'm not going to stand up for people who haven't asked for it.
Yeah.
Like, it is the most insane thing to me that you have people being like, we must defend these young women who are actively, publicly supporting Leah Thomas. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about?
I don't disagree with
publicly
you.
supporting Leah Thomas,
Tim,
and
but
you're acting like they're mad when they're not.
No, because that's not even the point. I'm saying what we tend to be in politics, and I'm not saying you, but just in general, is reactionary, where we expect that people move on our time. We consume stories by the daily. There are people that I've met an Uber driver that didn't even know there was a war in Ukraine, okay? Like, he didn't even know that was happening. People in the world are sometimes so focused on a goal that they even disconnect. That's even required of them to get off social media, etc., and they don't know what's going on. There is a problem that we see. The problem is that the swimmers need to see how big of an issue this is of letting a man compete against women in a way that will always beat them, will out-qualify them, and would fundamentally change the country. I'm saying I don't believe all of them see that. Because I remember being around non-political people who are like, okay, this is weird, but I'm being told this is right. And especially if they don't have any moral absolution, or maybe they're not even that high IQ. I'm saying they might be saying, I don't know what to do. So before I'm judging them for not swimming, I'm saying I think a lot of them are weighing their options, and more importantly, like you said, how you had to turn down a contract. I think a lot of them will lose out on their opportunities, and I think this is where you start seeing
because not enough of them are willing to stand up.
But you see them getting birthed. Somebody is going to get red-pilled. Somebody might stand up, and it might set a reaction.
How long has this has been going on? For 14 years in the public spotlight. If we track the data going into the New York Times, 14 years. Parents are not speaking up. They're not going to meetings. The fathers and the mothers are not showing up to meetings and saying we want rule changes. They don't care. Not only that, what I'm telling you, why I'm particularly frustrated with this is that even Rekha Georgi, the one person who got bumped from the finals, in her complaint said, I fully stand with Leah Thomas. And, she is no different from me or any other D1 swimmer who wakes up every day. And I said, then I am not going to do the work for you. And no one else should. If they have an issue with this, they need only politely say, they could wear a pink ribbon. They could wear a little ribbon that says, like, I am protesting this, but I'll keep going because I want my scholarships. But I am sick and tired of people who are aware of what's going on. And apparently, according to the mothers, they are, but they won't speak publicly, who are refusing to stand up and stand up for their rights. For whatever reason, they expect other people to do it for them. It's not going to happen. The left goes out and they throw bricks through windows and they burn down buildings, and they've literally killed dozens of people in the George Floyd riots. Yep. Kamala Harris then helped bail these people out. 13 Joe Biden staffers donated to help bail these people out. And Republicans are like, but I'm going to get called a racist. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. If you are unwilling to stand up for yourself, for your children, if you are a father unwilling to stand up for your daughter, and you think I'm going to come out and be like, I will stand up for you, I'm not going to do it.
So
these are
I
people
think
are as
that
weak
this
as they
goes
come.
back to, okay, look at what we saw for the past 2 years with the COVID lockdowns, right? People's businesses getting shut down, all of us being forced to mask up, all of these things that we had to do because the government told us to. I've been saying this since 15 days to slow the spread was originally talked about. This will not end until the masses decide that it does. You are completely right in that, Tim. This does not end until the female athletes decide that enough is enough. They're going to stand up, they're going to push back, and they're going to put an end to it.
I don't think they care. I think you guys are putting this view on them.
They definitely care.
No.
disagree.
I'll tell you this, though. No, this is genuinely true. And this is where I actually want to agree with you about the father thing. Yes, but it's deeper than that. My point is I'm not saying because they care that I'm fighting. And I know this is an unpopular statement, but number one, I don't expect women to be the fighters and the champions of social movements and of the country. I think they can. I think there's many women who've done many great things, but I understand I don't believe it's in their nature. I believe in traditional design. And I think a lot of these women tend to be more submissive. Not all women, especially modern feminist women, but I think that's the natural design. And I don't think, and I would blame their fathers more or their boyfriends or husbands more than them. I would do that. But on the side note, it's unimportant. Yeah.
Majority of was it 70% of millennial Democrats are female? Feminism, I think you have it backwards. Women are the ones who are consistently over the past 20 years demanding social change.
Yeah, but it's in one direction. So my point is, it's not in this direction.
And so why aren't these gentlemen doing the same thing?
This is my point. Is I'm saying that aside, because you'd have to ascribe to a traditional worldview or believe in God to really believe that, probably, or be very well versed in science. But I am going to say is, why I care about it is not because I'm not trying to get that 17th place person. I'm not petitioning so that she can get back into 16th. I don't care about this because of them. I care about this because of what it means for our country and for future generations if we accept as a whole. Even if that pool they all cared about, they don't care and whatever, they want to let it happen, okay, fine. So if there's a bunch of people in a house and they just want to create a meth lab and they're all cool with that, should I be cool with that? No. Should I fight against the idea of having major drug labs in houses across the country? Yes. Even if they are all for it and they're like, well, and the neighbors aren't mad about it, I'm like, dude, we're not going to have a country where you can just create meth labs and blow up houses. Sorry, not going to be okay with that.
Very different.
No, but yes, it's different. No, it's different. When you see something that's toxic, that's bad. That's a social issue. I'm using a physical issue that people could understand to a social issue. When you're allowing something to go out and not just to happen, because remember, it's not just the people in the pool. The swimmers are the least important to me on this. You have ESPN, et cetera, interviewing this. This is being reaffirmed nationally. And as you know on this show right now, if I were to say what I was really feeling about this issue, this live stream would get pulled. Meaning big tech is in on this as well, saying this is normal and normal people are not.
And
that's why I'm saying
too,
this is BS, and I'm going to fight the issue even if they won't, because I don't accept this for the country.
I don't disagree with you on that. I don't disagree with you on that. My frustration is with people who don't stand up for themselves. I'm saying I get pissed too. If we're talking specifically about the greater issue, by all means, everybody who wants to complain about it has a right to complain about it.
Yeah.
When we're specifically talking about Rekha Georgi as the one person to publicly complain because she's the one person who got bumped, I'm like, dude, you had every opportunity to speak up. You didn't, and you're only complaining now because you're the one person who got bumped. 18th place isn't complaining because she wouldn't have made it anyway, and 16th place isn't complaining because she did make it. I just don't see any principle among those people. And we already have people mentioning this, and I've answered this several times, who are saying, if I spoke up for my children, I would lose my job. Well, then I understand what you find to be more important. Security for your family is more important than what your children are going through with society and with culture.
So what
I said this before, and I'll say it again. If you're more concerned about keeping your job and keeping your income, at least you'll know your kids had a good meal. When in 20 years they're in the gulag or whatever.
Sometimes speaking up is actually dangerous. The founding fathers had to keep it under wraps. If they'd spoke up against George, they would have been executed on the block.
Oh, I completely agree. The parents could have come together on one night, all sat down and said, "Do we all agree we have a problem here? Okay,
yes.
Now that we've all come together, we can unanimously issue a statement under our names because we all know we have each other's
Yeah,
backs.
Leah Thomas technically isn't doing anything wrong. She's following the rules. So changing the rules is where the key lies. How do you best change the rules?
And if I could jump in with you guys on this, because I do want to make this point, because I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying, but this is when censorship comes into play. So we all know that many people on the right wing, many of these independent journalists are being censored. And why is that? It's because we are going out on the ground and we're elevating those unheard voices. So right now, you guys are saying you're not hearing from any of these athletes. And why is that? It's because ESPN is platforming Leah Thomas. It's because all of the mainstream is platforming Leah Thomas as a hero. They're not platforming the adults and the parents that are speaking out. They're not platforming the athletes that are speaking out. But they are, Tim, because I interviewed them last week, and guess what? All of those interviews are gone. Did you see any of my work from last week?
It got banned,
why
right?
did the mother who came out and gave why did she come out anonymously to the New York Post?
Again, there's also parents that came out. They were not anonymous. They came out last week. They had their names. They had their picture up in the article. But those stories are not elevated and they're not promoted. So I understand what you're saying, but understand too that big tech is allowed to, regulate what the narrative is. So there are people that are speaking out. There are athletes that are speaking out, but their footage is being deleted. They are being censored and they are being silenced because they are not the popular, narrative that the big tech wants to push.
The swimmers could have, chosen to protest the swim.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I completely agree with you on that. But I'm saying that there are voices that are being silenced.
Have publicly supported Leah Thomas, and we're talking in circles now. So I think it's just I get it. If there are people in this country who have an issue with what's happening in these schools, then I agree. If we're talking specifically about the NCAA right now, my problem is I am sick and tired of the past 10 years where there are people who know about the problems who refuse to speak up. I think it was Clifton Duncan said the same thing. He says he said something to the effect of, "I am more. What do you say? I have more disdain for those who know what's happening and refuse to speak than those who are ignorantly participating in it." Something to that effect. And that's where I've been at for some time.
Right.
The people who say to me, "I know what they're doing to my children in school, that they're grooming their kids." And that they're making up lies about, the Don't Say Gay bill. Man, if you come to me and tell me you know what these teachers are doing to your kids and that you'd rather have your job than save your kids from that, I think you've got a very serious problem with what's going to happen to your children. That's mind-blowing to me.
But here's where I have to think and not just react. I agree. And we're sitting in a room of people who've chosen, like you said, to not allow what could happen bad to us or our friends or our family inhibit us from pursuing what we believe God has called us to, or the universe, or whatever you ascribe to. My point is that I am saddened that in every culture there are warriors and there are people who fight. And in the age of information and intellectual property, a lot of the fighting happens in the intellectual centers. It's like back to Rome or to Greece. It's the battle of the wits. And of course, there still is real war, and there are people end up, deleting themselves with 2 shots to the back of the head. Things still happen. There's still violence. But overall, the fight is happening on the public square. And so a lot of different souls that would basically not make it on traditional battlefield are somehow successful. It basically values intellect rather than just physical might now. I am saying that I understand that wars have always been fought. And right now this war is being fought. And I don't mind. You and I take hits all the time. Everyone at this table does. It is so sad to me now that everybody is forced to join the war. Now, again, to concede to your point on this, there are times when the village gets raided, when the kingdom is under siege, and every able-bodied man, look at Ukraine, they're not letting the young men leave, where it's like there is a time to fight. But I'm saying my point is that sometimes I think we're rushing people because we're more alarmist and see what's going on.
It's been 14 years.
Yes, but more people wake up. You would think after COVID that everybody would have woken up to what's going on, but they still didn't because the sleep is so deep.
What's the Second Amendment say?
It's the right to a well-armed militia, basically.
The security of a free state, the right to keep and bear arms, etc. A well-regulated militia being necessary for a free state. And a militia was just the people who were armed, who would come together when needed. We didn't have police forces back in the day. We actually had local militia. That's how things were dealt with. So if somebody stole, they'd round up all the people and be like arrest them and bring them to the magistrate or whatever. And the Founding Fathers understood everybody would have to fight to defend their land. What I see now is we are in we're now in year 14 of a major culture war, and it's going back to economic collapse, the rise of critical race theory, Occupy Wall Street, Gamergate, all of these things. And you have people who are like, I've been watching what's been happening since Donald Trump. Social issues were a major component of why many millennials voted for Donald Trump. And still they say, as bad as it has gotten and as crazy as things have gotten, I still refuse to fight. but I'll be upset about it, I guess. Now, I don't think anybody has to do anything. I mean, look, if you want something, you have to fight for it. If you don't fight for it, I assume you don't want something. I'm not going to complain that these female swimmers don't care enough to speak out, but that's reality.
Are you saying nobody can avoid the war? I'm asking if that's where you're saying
No.
we're
What
at.
I'm saying is, to put it simply, if you place a person between two roads, and one is just keep swimming and keep your head down, and one is speak up and stand up for your rights, they're all choosing the road they think is better for them. That means they don't care enough about Leah Thomas to actually say anything. I'm sure they're upset about it because you can be mad about your choices and choose the lesser of two evils or something slightly worse. If people really cared about this, if parents really cared about their children, if you really cared about your kids and you knew teachers were grooming your kids, you would be homeless to save your child from that, right? Let me ask you both. Which would you prefer? Your child spends 8 hours a day being groomed by cult members and you make $50,000, $60,000 a year, or you're homeless and your kids are safe with you?
So whether we'd have our kids hang out with Pete Buttigieg's husband or we'd be homeless.
Okay, I'm talking about what's going on in Florida.
Yeah, I mean,
the
kids matter, but I will say onto that point real fast. This is where I think that we're getting confused on the argument, and it's not going in circles. Just like I watched the gay pride parade in Austin in that elementary school, I'm going, I don't blame the kids that are, I think they were like 8, 9 years old, 10 years old. I don't blame the kids for, anything about that. I would blame the teachers. And my fight would be with the teachers. I know this is unpopular, but I'm going to say this. I'm just pointing to that. I view people who are asleep, a lot of people who are asleep, with the same way that I view children, is that they are not aware of what's going on, and I don't assume they all know what's going on, so I keep accountable those that do. And if there are swimmers that are out there that fully are aware of what's going on, they know what they're doing is wrong, and they choose to do it, then yes, I would call them out, but we don't know.
And I'm asking you a specific question.
I'd rather be homeless.
You would rather be homeless, safe with your kids.
Yeah, because I'd figure out another way to make money.
Well, so the response we get every time I bring this up, and we have super chats right here saying this exact thing, is I can't speak up because I would lose my job, and my kids need to eat and things like that. In West Virginia, you think it's the second most Trump supporting state in the country. You'd think the schools are going to be Republican. They're not.
Yeah.
The school board members who were voted in are woke. There are kids in West Virginia schools who are being groomed and indoctrinated. And there are parents who say, I don't care enough to risk my security, and that includes my children's security. Now, I can fully understand. You prioritize your kid having a full belly over being away from groomers. I personally disagree. I don't have kids, so maybe I can't speak to it, and that's fine. But I typically ask most people, and they give me the same response. I would rather be homeless and unsure of how I'm going to eat and my kids than leave my children in the hands of a groomer for 8 hours every day at these schools. My question is then why so many parents do it, and I think it's because the parents, many of them don't know, and I'll totally contend to that, and we're fighting every day to inform them. But many of the parents do know and tell me, well, I don't want to lose my job. Okay, look, no disrespect. You've chosen it. We had Andrew Heaton on, and I was explaining. He's a middle of the road guy, and he says both sides. I take issue with.
He's a libertarian guy.
I think is he a libertarian?
Yeah, reason.
Yeah. I said the right makes their arguments based off of they present facts they can prove to you, and then from those facts will give you their opinion on why their policy ideas are correct. The left will lie to you about what the problem is because the ends justify the means to convince you to side with them. And his response was that I was describing the left as, bad or evil and the right as moral. And I said, no, I'm not. The left literally will tell you this by any means necessary. In their books, they write the strategy of keeping secrets. There's undercover video being exposed right now. Something from Accuracy in Media was going viral where teachers are saying, we're going to change the language but keep CRT in schools. We can't let the parents know. This is exactly what they'll tell you they're doing. What I said to him was, if you think that I'm describing them as good or evil, it's because you view one side as good or evil, not because I've ascribed that to them. The right does this. They'll say, look at this fact. It's not from me, it's proof, right? Therefore, here's my argument on moral issues or whatever. The left will say, here's a manipulation to trick you into agreeing with me. We see it all the time in the press. These are tendencies, not absolutes. When it comes to somebody who says, I can't speak up because my kids or whatever, what they're really saying is deep down they know their kid being in this position is very wrong and bad, but they prefer to keep their kid with the groomer than lose their job. Actions speak louder than words.
And if I could answer now too, I would have the same exact answer as Elijah to say, I would rather be homeless and take care of my child and protect my kids. But what you just laid out there, Tim, is exactly why our country is where it is today. Because if push comes to shove, and I think about this all the time with the Second Amendment, right? If push comes to shove, how many Americans do you think if the police were at their door right now and said, give us your guns or we will kill you, how many of them would just give up their guns willingly and give up their Second Amendment and rights? People do not understand that standing up for your rights means you are willing to die for your rights, and you need to be ready to die for your rights, for your freedoms every single day. People don't seem to understand that because we've been so coddled as a society, because we face no real challenges as in this country, and so people so willingly give away their rights and freedoms, which is why for the past year we've watched people say, I don't want to get vaccinated, but I'm going to do it to keep my job because the government told me to do it. If the government tells me to take 4, 5, 6 boosters, I will do it because they told me to. People do not have the mentality that they need to fight for their rights and die for them, and they don't get it, which is why we're here today.
Let's jump to the story about censorship. We have this from Timcast.com. Patreon bans users for content on other platforms without warning.
Yep.
This week, Patreon, which hosts paid content for creators, has banned 2 well-known creators from its platform for appearances and content shared on other media platforms. On Tuesday, Sydney Watson, host of You Are Here, I've heard of that show, on Blaze TV, was banned from the platform. Watson does not regularly post content to the site, but was banned over hate speech, according to a notice from Patreon. Watson's program on Blaze TV covers current topics, such as Disney employee walkouts. I think we know that. Plus, we have Elijah here, so we can move on. And we also had Josh Lakash. Is that how you pronounce it?
Lake Cash, I think.
Lake Cash?
Cash, yeah.
He was banned hours after appearing on Infor. So these are 2 accounts. But it's not just these individuals on Patreon. It's also Tucker Carlson got censored on Twitter, and Charlie Kirk, and the Babylon Bee. So it looks like we're starting to see censorship kicking back up. For a while there was a small lull, right? Censorship was huge news for a long period of time. All of a sudden now, the reason I would say it looks like we're starting to see things kick into high gear is that Tucker Carlson getting censored is big. I mean, he's prominent. But seeing Sydney Watson get her Patreon banned when she doesn't even post to it is very interesting to me. Why would they shut down Sydney's Patreon? Here's my thoughts. She was getting about $1,000 a month from Patreon passively. This helps Sydney exist and do work and be influential. The midterm elections are coming up, and just 1 month ago, Mike Bloomberg said the Democrats are going to get wiped out. The polls are showing, as of the past few months, Democrats are getting wiped out. Mike Bloomberg was interesting because he said the reason they're going to get wiped out is because Americans perceive Democrats as being too obsessed with cultural issues and not economic issues. Well, why would people believe that? I mean, if you watch the mainstream media, sure, you might hear like CNN and MSNBC will talk some about the Democrats, but for the most part, no, they're trying to prop them up. It's channels like ours, it's shows like yours, Elijah, with Sydney, that are bringing up the cultural issues Democrats are engaged in, what the schools are actually fighting for. The teachers are trying to keep these things a secret. They don't want parents to know about it. If the parents didn't know about it, they'd probably not think Democrats were fighting for it. Because people like you or I expose this stuff, there's a perception growing among regular voters that Democrats are obsessed with cultural issues. Then they banned Sydney Watson seemingly out of the blue for no reason. Why? They want to start stripping away influence like we saw in 2018. The first Patreon purge, it happened just after the midterms. I think just around the same time as the midterms. We saw Carl Benjamin get booted, and then all of a sudden a bunch of people staged a mass exodus. I think it may have been before the midterms, actually. It's no surprise that right before Democrats start losing, their allies in big tech and media start coming after prominent influencers who are making Democrats look bad.
Yeah, first of all, on the Sydney issue, we have to focus on this. I'll comment on Josh in a second. But number one, that Sydney didn't use the platform or post anything anymore is clear evidence that she didn't do anything wrong on the platform. We know that Patreon does ban for activity outside the platform. In fact, I ended up doing a meeting and pretending to be take one of their user meetings with their engineer team and pretended like I cared, and I recorded this. I don't know if I should say that, but ended up recording the audio and kept asking them questions of whether or not that they were. I've never published it, so I guess it's not illegal, hopefully. But I also was like, I was talking to them, and I genuinely, this is years ago, like what, 2018 or about? I think 2018. I was like, hey, I just want to know if you guys are for free speech. And every time I'd ask them a question, they would just kind of like dodge it, and nothing came of it. Matt Christensen got on a call, recorded it years ago. Do you remember this in 2018 when Matt Christensen like recorded his phone call, whatever?
Jack Conte.
Yeah. So he literally got on there, and when he was asked about it, whether it's if they care about free speech, they were just like, I don't know. So like basically, they didn't want to answer. So I looked back. I had tweets in 2018 saying I gotta leave, and my first tweet of January 1st of 2019 was like, my goal this year is to leave Patreon, and I did, and I lost thousands of dollars prematurely because I knew that this would happen. But with Sydney Watson, there's 3 things that are really vital here. Number 1. Sydney is not a religious zealot, nut, right-wing extremist, person, some white straight male that we got to get off because you're going to bring the nationalist fascist government back. Sydney is a cultured, atheist, very well-spoken, well-researched individual who mostly just puts out on her own channel hyper-researched, well-thought-out scripted videos. She has no history of making extremist statements. She's never been a part of an extremist group. The closest thing she's ever done to extremism was run a men's right conference in Australia, another country, for their rights and to fight for them, which was controversial in Australia, which everything's controversial there. But more importantly, the ironic part is we run a show together now. And the whole reason why we run a show together, she's the sane one who actually brings some logic and some straightforwardness and helps keep me back in reality where she lives while I'm out in space. So it's like Sydney's reputation is actually for being calculated, for thinking things through. And she's known for, if she doesn't know stuff, will say, I actually haven't researched that. I don't know that. So you're taking just a normal girl who's literally from Australia, who doesn't have a history of anything, gets deleted. It's targeting for a specific reason. And I'm wondering, though, with this, as they deleted her, I'm wondering if they're just testing who else they can delete. Because if they can get somebody who doesn't post but is still making money, I feel like it gives them the green light to go, well, let's go after other people, too. There's no evidence. Nothing happens.
I mean, it was 3.5 years ago. We saw these conversations. I will say for Sydney, I reached out to her. She said I asked her if it was like a background thing for her, meaning she has it, it's available to people, but she doesn't actively post there. So it exists. But it's not like she was using the platform and ran afoul of their rules. So as for Josh, I really have to question why he was on Patreon. Josh Lakash.
Are you familiar with Wrong Opinion podcast?
I'm not familiar, but I would like to comment on Sydney very quickly before you move on to Josh. I would just say that this is the soft introduction to people getting banned from banks, which we're already seeing here in America. Look at what just happened in Canada. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no. The point I was bringing up with Josh is that all of this happened almost 4 years ago. I think it's fair to say 3.5 years ago, because it was 3 years and 5 months. Yeah. So for Sydney to get banned, she got banned for what Carl Benjamin got banned for, the exact same thing, off-platform behavior.
I see.
So again, I'll say this.
Like what did she do? Do you have any clue?
She existed.
Well, for Sydney, she wasn't using Patreon as like her core income. And so, I don't really care. If you have a Patreon right now and you're like, oh, I don't really care about it, I don't even think twice. If it's gone, it's gone. It's here. It's whatever. There's money. I'm like, okay, I get it. But the reason I brought up Josh is that he put his career on a platform where over 3 years ago, Lauren Southern was nuked overnight without warning. And then Carl Benjamin, the CEO, said, we'll never do this again. We will issue warnings to people, let them know because we don't want to take their income. And then someone dug up a live stream where Carl Benjamin was making a point about, he was arguing with people who he says were alt-right. And so he used a racist term to describe them. And his point was, you are exactly the way you describe these people. For that, Patreon banned his account without warning for off-platform behavior. And then reported that, he said a racial slur and got banned. 3 years later, Josh is still using the platform. I mean, I'm like, at a certain point, there is, I think it's wrong. They shouldn't have banned him. But it's also like, bro, if like Antifa puts up a big flyer saying we're having an Antifa party and we're going to beat up Elijah Schaffer, and then Elijah Schaffer's like, I'm going to go to that.
That was my job for like 18 months.
No, but I mean like specifically saying like,
true.
Like
good career choice.
Like this bill, like it's one thing to be in a public space that everyone's allowed to access, but Patreon is a private company. That I do understand. And the moment they took action against Lauren and Carl, I was like, I'm out.
Red flag, yeah.
After Lauren, I actually talked to the CEO. And he was like, dude, we're trying. You got to understand. I argued with him. And I even I'm pretty sure he didn't even know what he was talking about when it came to Lauren Southern when I talked to him. When it happened with Carl Benjamin, I was like, this dude lied to us. So they invited us into their business. Let's say it was a sandwich shop that had a big sign saying Elijah Schaffer will get punched in the face. So it's like, would you go in there? They're coming after you.
Depends if it's a Monday.
Or maybe. Like they're going to spit in your food. They're not going to service you.
I get what you're saying. Like there are so many opportunities I think you've seen too where like genuinely, and I want to hear Sav's opinion on this. Someone who is just fresh off the delete train is where I totally understand this. I have a hard time commenting since I run primarily my career on YouTube. And I know YouTube hates me, and I know that I could lose my channels any second. And I know we're all kind of playing that game. I would say I think Josh just probably bet on the fact that, I don't mean this disrespectfully to him, that it's more of a niche, smaller podcast. He's not Lauren Southern. He's not going on some ship cruise and wearing It's Okay to Be White t-shirts into Australia and whatnot. He's not doing these things. He's not getting the national press. He's got a niche podcast. And I love Lauren Southern so much. But I meant, like, he's got this way where you think, well, I'm probably beyond scrutiny. Like, even Sydney or whatever is raising in her profile. She's been very successful recently and throughout her career. I think she'll eventually be at 1 million subs pretty soon. And so she could be a target, but not me. And so that's what we're kind of seeing, like with Sav, where it's like, and I'm not meaning this to disrespect to you either, where Sav's learned this the hard way, is like, it doesn't matter how big you are. It matters what you're doing. It really does.
It's inverted, actually. The bigger you are, the harder it is to ban you because it makes too big of a splash.
Yeah.
That's why when it came to Learn to Code, Twitter mostly banned smaller accounts. So when the Learn to Code thing was happening and they were banning people, it was mostly people with a few hundred followers who were just engaging and sharing and talking. I tweeted Learn to Code several times. Nothing ever happened to me. My account was just too big. It would have been too big of an issue. And they said, oh no. So they can get rid of as many of these conservatives as possible saying Learn to Code, and none of them are big enough to actually make a splash. That's what they're going for. So banning Josh is actually entirely predictable. If you were a small creator, like if you're a new channel with maybe only 100 to several thousand followers, and you go on YouTube, you'll be banned in 2 seconds. If you go on Patreon, you'll be banned in 2 seconds. This is why I say if you're just starting out now, Rumble is the place to be. Absolutely Rumble. Or Minds. But Rumble is going to be growing. Plus, there's Locals integration with Rumble. I've got my issues with Locals, but they're still substantially better than Patreon. I can't imagine. Like, there's no reason you couldn't just go to Locals. You know, you build your business on the platform of someone who expressly says, like, we're going to destroy you and we want to. And then you're shocked when they do.
Well, and that's the thing, too, that we all should have learned from Alex Jones being banned, right? It was Alex Jones. He was crazy. He was a conspiracy theorist. Everyone was like, yeah, he deserves to be banned. No one else is going to get banned. And then as the years have progressed, we've seen more and more people get banned. And like you just talked about, Tim, if you're an independent journalist who's just getting into the game, you are not going to make it if you're willing to tell the truth. You're not going to make it if you're actually trying to go out on the street and go get those interviews and go viral. It's very difficult.
I mean,
Rumble, sure. It's growing. It's a new platform. But I mean, think about the fact that you, Candace Owens, Elijah Schaffer, Steven Crowder, a lot of these big names, you guys got really popular back in the day when YouTube was still the wild, wild west, when you could still say whatever you wanted on Twitter. Now it's really difficult to break into the space unless you're on an alternative platform like Truth Social or Locals, Rumble, all that stuff.
I agree and I disagree. I got big well after the censorship was taking effect. I mean, my main growth was in 2019. So
that's when it hit too. The major news shift on YouTube.
It was 2018 in May when YouTube nuked my channels everyone's channels got nuked across the board. And it was only last year the censorship got removed on Google for Timcast. So we actually were hindered for a long time. I think the issue was that, for one, I'm a workaholic. I was producing, I think 4 hours of content every day, more than any other talk radio host or podcaster, and weekends with no days off. That helped me kind of push through this barrier they were setting up. Mm-hmm. And then last year, I mentioned on this show that you couldn't even Google search Timcast, the channels, or any of our videos. If you took the title of one of our segments and put it in Google, Facebook would come up. You could even try and search for YouTube. And then immediately after that, the next day, the filters were removed. So we actually went through all of that. We had the Alternative Influencer Network study that was published by all these major outlets that tried claiming I was the center, no joke, of like this vast network of the alt-right or something. Craziest thing ever. Claimed that I had done segments with people I'd never met before. Claimed that Chris Reagan had coordinated with Richard Spencer. Like the levels of lies and smears.
Chris Reagan? Who?
Chris Reagan.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
You know the song Punch a Nazi?
No, I don't.
Haven't heard that.
I just hear that yelled at me before I end up getting a black eye.
It's a satirical song based on Paparazzi by Lady Gaga, where he mocks the left for thinking everyone's a Nazi. He did delete, he unlisted the video because I guess the left told him it was bad and he like apologized or something for it and removed it, which I think is ridiculous and silly because it was a great point he was making. But the point being, The true era of free speech on YouTube was
2006. After Google bought them in 2006, it was about 4 months, and then they made their first ban, and it was Warren 25. Go back and watch Warren 25 videos if you can find any of them. He had to change his name, Warren 25 Smash. He came back, then they banned that. He would swear profanities at George Bush to end the war. Just this Canadian dude. Oh, so lit. And he gave me inspiration to speak my mind.
Dude, I get so sad that I'll never get to experience YouTube at its peak.
Come on,
you can go back and watch it,
Nika
but it was
Avocado?
cool.
But
a lot of late nights
Do you
video
remember
chatting.
that? Nika Avocado, his name was literally not the Nikk, it was Nigga. And Avocado, he's a white guy on YouTube for a long time. And then it wasn't even as bad as it is now. All he had to come out was be like, yo, I didn't know we weren't supposed to be using the N-word in our names. And then everyone was like, cool. And he's still popular. He's like one of the most viral people in the world. He's like, sorry, try doing that today. Call yourself N-word cast IRL. It's not going to work.
There is no peak of YouTube. There isn't one. I mean, maybe we'll see it once YouTube's completely obliterated. But I was at the Tribeca Film Festival ceremony thing I got invited to back in, I think, 2012. I'm pretty sure this was 2012. And there was this very popular YouTube group. I'll let them keep their privacy. And they were talking to me about how they were like, man, YouTube used to be amazing back in like 2009, 2010. They were like, we'd put up a video and we'd get like 5 million views. Now we're lucky if we get 500,000. That was in 2012 they were saying that. Vice, they got all of their big play on their documentaries in like 2009 and 2010. And then after that, it's like on average, they get like 50,000 now. So people are like, oh man, the best time was 4 or 5 years ago. No, there's no, it's getting bad. It's getting worse. But I think the reality is right now, the ladder is being pulled up behind you. There are different periods where everyone thinks like this period was the peak. This period was the peak. I don't know when the peak was, to be honest. Maybe 2012, but maybe not even, because your real opportunity for virality in the era of Reddit and YouTube. This is how, you know, I'm gonna leave people's names out of it, but there's a very prominent podcast that's like spiraling out of control and failing with, you know, this.
He's like, the host is sitting in the room. And I'm like,
but I won't point fingers.
Yeah, no. It's a big podcast.
Slightly offensive is spiraling out of
But
control.
I'm gonna leave their name out of it, because what they would do is they would manipulate Reddit to get YouTube traction, and it worked. So you like, there are certain things everyone knew Reddit wanted, and it was very, very easy to gamify the Reddit upvote and downvote system. And so people who didn't know about this, like politicians and big companies, didn't know how to gamify Reddit. So it was just savvy people who had been in the internet figured out how to exploit it to make themselves famous, and they did. And there was this period where if you were smart and you had the ability, you'd make it happen. Now, I agree with you. We're at a point where you can't do it. The ladder's being pulled up behind everybody. If you're really good, you can find a way. But I will say we're at a point where the ladder's gone. Go on Rumble.
Well, but here's the fundamental issue, and this is what's so insane to me of how this is backfiring, because I feel like I just squeezed in the last second. It was like the last ditch effort, and one of the other people that squeezed in, Sydney squeezed in, John Doyle squeezed in. It's like this 2018 year. This is right before it got really bad in 2019. If you got in on 2018, you essentially, you know, in the terms of the girl getting passed around the team, you were the 4th or 5th in, but you still made it into the game, into the party. It's true. You still got something. And we got action. And a lot of our channels aren't as big as other channels. We face a lot of stuff, but I'm grateful. And I'm grateful for what I have. I'm grateful for the career God gave me. And I'm happy about that. But here's where I'm not happy. And I'm upset. And it makes me angry. Because they have done 2 things that is both unforgivable and is going to damage our country as a whole. And I don't think it can be undone. Number one, by shutting the door to individual creators, that was their point, is to take away independent media, because not just the right wing, but as we see with like Russell Brand or Joe Rogan, people who are not right wing, but are inherently open to ideas, which is now becoming a right wing idea. I don't know if you saw today that MSNBC says that exercise is a right wing idea, which I actually kind of agree with. But I will say that they shut the door because it's a joke, but okay. Anyway, so they shut the door to independent and small media. And that was always their plan. My new PA, Josiah Moody, who started, he was like, hey, I was like, yeah, Tucker at his peak will get, 3.5 million views. He goes, yeah, but have you seen his YouTube? It's crushing. And I go, yeah, bro, I'm going to tell you about this one thing called authoritative news sources, where they, gave all the news media basically all of the views that we would all get. So number one, that shut it out, and that doesn't allow us to have ideas. It gives the mainstream media control of the internet, which they didn't have in our country. But the worst part about this is, and you'll know this, the worst part about this, let's say you're new and you want to come up. Well, the way that you want to come up in your new and your political, you can't go with the views model unless you work for mainstream media. So you've got to build a cult following. A cult following will always reward more extreme ideas. And not only will it reward more extreme ideas, but it'll actually push you into corners, into more niche avenues, which will make somebody try to appeal to a more extreme perspective. And I see this happening all across the board, especially with Gen Z, is that they've become very authoritarian on left and the right. The people that they like to watch that are more like, demonetized, banned on Twitch, either they're pushing straight up fascism or communism, they're pushing absolute authoritarianism. And what you do is the only place that you can grow. You can go onto any of these side apps where people have fundamentally more extreme views. Now, what that does is it means if you want to find someone who's young, who thinks like you, who's a new creator, Tim Pool sucks, Elijah sucks, Sav sucks, Ian sucks. Okay, I don't want to hear these millennial people, whatever, get the hell out. Where's my Gen Z? You've got a few options, and I'm not going to name them on the screen. You got a few options. I'm telling you, you're not getting kosher ideas. Those are fringe ideas. Some of them, whether you agree with them or not, you have one option. So they're creating an extremist pipeline that they say they're trying to ban. And that's what makes it sad is a young guy goes, well, I want to be a right-wing podcaster. If you're espousing Charlie Kirk's views, Ben Shapiro's views, you aren't going to get anywhere. You're going to have to go as far right or as far left as possible. You're going to have to appeal to the extreme base, focus on small donations, and then we start breeding these little like cosmic groups of people who are in an echo chamber and they all think they're right. They're completely detached from any of the mainstream narrative, any of the independent media, and they're doing their own thing. And I feel like we've lost them. They hate us all, by the way. Gen Z hates, like they really genuinely do, like hate the millennials and all the other creators. They're like very against
right
us.
to hate millennials.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that
I'm only half kidding.
But I meant there's no olive branch because you don't have like a good Gen Z YouTuber that comes on your show and then you're debating and you're on his channel. We just don't have that. There's like a cutoff. It's like 25 years old and everyone under that is now in their own niche and we have a divide politically. And I don't know what they're up to until I go to their streaming sites and I'll watch them and I'm like, oh crap. Like, I mean, from Charlie Kirk to now, I'm glad we've gotten more like open to discussing ideas.
Charlie Kirk is Gen Z, isn't he?
No, he's my age, 28, so he's millennial.
28's millennial?
Yeah, for sure. I think 26 is the cutoff, or 25 is the cutoff.
Oh, okay.
So,
But I was going to say, yeah, under 25, it's not that all their ideas are wrong. I'm just going, oh, we went here that quickly. It's been 4 years, and we're now talking about the authoritarian takeover of the country and getting rid of the Constitution, installing a king, and I'm just in a mono, religious state. I'm going, how did we jump in 5 years from, hey, let's talk about H-1B visas and talk about, immigration moratoriums to a Catholic Christendom? It's not that these people are I'm not scared of them or anything. I'm just going, oh crap, that was a fast acceleration
I just want to
politically.
I just want to mention something, because I was watching Fox, I'm not sure, and a commercial came on with Charlie Kirk. He was promoting some kind of product for like back pain, I think it was. I'm not entirely sure, but it was just interesting because it was like him talking about how he was having trouble exercising and he needed some supplements or something like that. And I'm like, isn't Charlie like in his mid to late 20s? It was just kind of weird. I don't know if you've seen the commercials.
No, I do know. I always get shocked that he's my age because he's a lot richer than me and done so much more with his life. People criticize him, but I always say this: he has a lot you could criticize, and that shows he's done a lot, and there's fair points. But all I want to end with the point on that is that is where. There's an article written about me recently that was supposed to be a pejorative, like sort of diss that was going, oh, Elijah is becoming the olive branch, connecting the fringe right to the mainstream right. And I'm like, hell yeah, I am. Yes, I am. Because I think that the mainstream right freaking sucks. And I think the fringe right is idealistic and they see the problems, but they're overcorrecting. I think instead of, understanding that, yeah, maybe you don't like feminist women and maybe you want to see women be wholesome. You don't just hate women. Don't be proud to be an incel. The two shall become one. Get married. Find a wholesome woman. If you're out there and you're like, hey, yeah, I realize the LGBT movement sucks. They're talking about putting the gays against the wall and shooting them. And you're like, hey, there's steps between that to where you can fix society that doesn't have to jump straight to like mass killings of people. And
I kind of think maybe that's just a really fringe thing because
it is not as fringe as you would think. No. It is the idea of going from just, hey, let's fight the LGBTQ movement to let's do away with them is pretty relevant and common. And what I'm saying is I'm going, hey, we need to kind of slow this down for a second and we need to figure this out because we're going literally from like, hey, we need Christ back in the country, which we do, to like, let's create a religious state that is, we're going back, to a monarchy and stuff. And I'm going, hey, that's maybe ideal and not realistic. So let's bring some of these kids out of the echo chambers. let them experience life and see, hey, let's attain to some real solutions rather than these extreme positions that might lead to absolute anarchy.
Are these positions like on TikTok?
They're on TikTok. They're on Rumble. They're on BitChute. They are on independent streaming sites. And I'm not saying that I disagree with everything these people think. I just see that they're young people who are disconnected from older people with wisdom. So they're taking these super overcorrective worldviews that are based in truth and out of a desire to correct what's wrong in the country, but they're disconnected from reality.
Completely insane.
Yeah, but they're disconnected from reality. But their echo chambers are growing so large that they all think that they're right because they don't like us. They don't talk to any of us. We don't talk. No one will talk to them. People won't even say Nick Fuentes' name or any other young Gen Z leader. And so, I'm saying
we got to
push
slow
into
down
a corner.
Like, you're talking about a very extreme statement here about killing people. I've not seen prominent or large groups of Gen Z doing anything like that.
Prominent in terms of famous?
I'm talking about prominent in terms of something that's received a lot of attention. Like, it sounds maybe like, yeah, there are fringe groups of people, but they're not very large. I find it hard to believe that there's large groups of Gen Z who believe what you're saying.
I would disagree, and I would say that I think it's our fault. That's what I'm saying. I think we've rejected them. Like, people won't have conversations with people. And I think we're very neoliberal now, and we've gotten to a point where we've accepted a sort of degenerate states of America. And if you start to disagree with that, as you know, even if you like misgender someone, you could be banned. These people reject it entirely, and they're just like, let's have a solution. Let's figure this out, and let's do something. And I'm saying very, very extreme ideas don't get rebutted. I don't see, like, to your point, I don't see them getting rebutted in these circles, that it's kind of like, I agree with them, there's a big problem, but then it's like the two factors. Big tech cut them off, and so did we.
This is what Bill Ottman and Daryl Davis have been talking about. That Minds, the platform, has been working on this for several years. Banning people doesn't stop their ideas, it makes them worse. It puts them in a small room where they can only fester amongst themselves. So Minds has been trying to find a way to de-radicalize, not to deplatform. So, I think it was that Westboro Baptist Church woman.
Yeah.
She got de-radicalized on Twitter.
The daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, because she was exposed to a bunch of other people and other ideas, and allowed her to realize, her ideas were wrong. If these big tech companies are taking people and isolating them, I mean, yeah, there are probably places where people are saying really insane things. But I also find it strange. Like, I honestly, I can't believe the degree to which you've explained it, because, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that gets banned for even being hinted at. Like,
that's my point, though. So we don't
but like,
hear it.
Look at where we're at as a society as well. That's what I was going to say, is all of the people who have been banned off of Twitter and all of these other social media platforms, the people who have been watching the media lie to us consistently for years, they've gotten radicalized themselves, and they don't feel like they can trust anything in society. They don't feel like they can trust the government. Big tech silences them, and then they're going to these platforms like Parler and Gab and all of these other places, and it's a huge echo chamber. And so we're seeing the radicalization of both the right and the left, like Elijah is talking about, because we just have these echo chambers with people reiterating these same exact ideas, and they continue to get more and more extreme because there's no debate or rebuttal, like you said.
In the early days of YouTube, I started to get very radical, because it was what you were talking about. The more radical you get, the larger your cult following builds faster, and I was like propelling it, and I went semi-crazy. I almost killed myself, and I stopped making videos. I started building minds behind the scenes.
Intentionally, or like
no, like I was just so depressed with the world and what was happening, and I was overly red-pilled, I guess. I overdosed.
Black pill.
And I find now I'm way more resilient to being radicalized because I once was. I have this, I understand how it happens. I went through it once before, and I can see it happening. Also, watching it happen to myself on video when I go back and watch my videos helps a lot. Because I see myself as I don't have to see it from my own perspective. I can see it from an outside perspective and watch myself go crazy. And more people should do that. Let themselves be seen in public. I know it's risky and it's nerve-wracking, but it's worth it.
This is what's been happening since censorship became an issue. The right is overly policed. So the only people left standing are suit-wearing, more moderate or slightly center-right conservative types. The left is left, unabated. So the worst of the worst shine through. The way I described it before is like, imagine there are two kids, and the parent doesn't let their son have any ice cream, but their daughter is allowed to have all the ice cream they want. So you walk up and you see two kids, and you've got the daughter covered in chocolate and fudge all over her face, and she looks like a disaster, and you're like, that kid is unkempt, messy, and disorganized. Something's wrong with it. And then you look over and you see this clean-cut looking, child wearing a nice little suit, and you're like, see, that's how you should do it. The assumption is one kid is inherently better than the other, but the reality is the parent just doesn't let one kid anywhere near ice cream. So what happens on social media is you can have a fringe right-wing conspiracy theorist go on the platform and they get nuked in 2 seconds. You can have Antifa advocate for violence and they're allowed. So what ends up happening to regular, your more mainstream urban liberal types, your city urban liberal types, is the prominent voices that get played are extreme and uncensored. They say crazy things and they're allowed. So what happens? When Richard Spencer got punched in the face, the entirety of the establishment left was cheering, calling for violence and celebrating it. When the Covington kid situation happened, you had large quantities of blue check establishment personalities and journalists advocating for violence against these kids. The right can go nowhere near that, so you typically don't see the right calling for violence on Twitter. Granted, I think if the right was uncensored as well, you'd probably see similar things, but they get purged from the platform. It gives the right a more clean-cut appearance. So what they're effectively doing is the left is continually radicalizing itself through their own privilege and control of institutions. I think that will lead to their downfall because regular people who don't want to be involved in this are starting more and more to align with conservatives. We see it in basically every poll. Is the economy doing well? Independents and Republicans agree. It's not. Democrats, for some reason, think it is. Do you approve of Joe Biden? Independents and conservatives are like, no way, he's doing a bad job. Democrats are out there in Wally World believing their own cult nonsense. Because of this, regular middle-of-the-road people, the people Republicans need in order to get elected, they're siding with Republicans. Now the general ballot polling for the midterms shows Republicans with a major advantage in 538, about 2.5 points, and at Real Clear Politics is like 3.5 points. When Democrats have 5 points or less, they lose seats. If Republicans now have an advantage, I mean, some are speculating it's going to be massive in November for Republicans. Not that I think the Republicans will do anything, but people are certainly pissed off.
You know what? Real fast, just to say to your point, it's so common actually that the FBI had to add the phrase in Minecraft to their list of dog whistles because there was so much talk about violence and adding additives to them that's increased so heavily that the FBI even got involved. And I'm not even saying that sometimes in wars are necessary, there are righteous wars. But what I want to thank you for sharing that story is like people don't realize that I myself too started out extremely radical, nearly cult-like, like into the terms of like where I started was like, FEMA camps and Alex Jones got me started in politics. And then I switched over to like Ben Shapiro and stuff. And people were nervous about my political beliefs. I was getting in trouble. I was doing activism. I, early on had Obama's a communist t-shirt, got banned from political statements at school. I'm not going to explain everything I did, but I ended up getting suspended for some of my activism in high school. And I overcorrected and I started, doing the PragerU, Charlie Kirk stuff, big tent. Let's all just get along. I'm tired of the animosity. And it was just super, super cringy. Like when I look back at myself now, I'm like, I don't even recognize the person I was. I sort of overcorrected, like you said, because it was like I got so scared. I was like, dude, the world's coming to an end. Like I'm gonna freaking die. And so the point is like I think sometimes when you go through that moment to where you did find yourself in what would be considered an extremist, if I shared some of the views I held then, I would be kicked off the internet where it is now. And then I overcorrected to the point where I was like too cringe for the internet. I mean, I look at some of my old things I've made and I'm like, wow, that guy sucks. Like you're such a loser and you're such a weak position. You need to get stronger. And so starting from that overcorrection, now I can see like I get why people do follow and believe these radical things, but I also think we need to keep them based in reality. And I also get nervous too, because a lot of these are religiously motivated arguments, but neglect to bring the Bible and actually God's character into account. So these are people, I talk to a lot of these people who are very zealous and religious, and I respect that, but they don't know their Bible. It comes a lot of times from a place of self-righteousness and bitterness and anger and hatred for the world that they've been given. And I love the fact that they want to change the world. But I do fear, because I've been seeing it across the board with Gen Z, we're not the popular ones. They're not flooding into our shows. They're flooding into those shows. And if you look at their conferences and what's going on, they're getting bigger, bigger, and bigger. And that's our fault if we're not extending and trying to bridge the gap. And we just blame tech companies and go, well, I guess life is like this and we're just on the outskirts. It's like, no, I believe in America where we can bridge this intellectual gap that we're having. Dude, a few years ago, Ben Shapiro was considered the intellectual dark web. And now people think Ben Shapiro is like the softest dude ever on major social issues. And that was what, since 2016?
But intellectual dark web was progressives.
No, but
I think he was the only conservative.
But I'm saying he was considered to be like controversial. And it's like Ben Shapiro's not controversial at all. Like he's probably one of the most kosher people. I'm saying I see a problem.
We have a
and
lot
it's
of Gen Z
emerging.
viewers.
No, yes, so do I. 25% of my audience, or about 22%. That's not what I meant. Overall, there are Gen Z. That's where they're gravitating. So people are, but it's not like all Gen Z is going in our direction. I see the shift turning into more extreme. Like
I think it's
genuinely see
because
so.
too, Gen Z is living through the most insane period our country has seen in a long time. Again, look at what's going on with the Supreme Court nominee right now. She can't even identify what a woman is, and then uses the word immediately after. They're living through this insane time of cancel culture. So we have this entire subset of the generation that feels so ostracized, feels so radicalized, and then they see the conservative movement that is supposed to stand for them, and it's people like I said, Matt Schlapp, who are big tent conservatism. They don't draw any hard lines, which is why conservatism as a whole is just liberalism at this point. And that's even my beef with libertarianism. If you look at human psychology, people do at their core inherently need to be led. Like, not everybody is a leader. Some people are followers. And if you don't have somebody in the conservative movement that's actually leading the movement in the way that it should be led, and it's actually standing up for these conservative values, look at where we're at right now. That's why we have two factions of conservatism. That's why Gen Z feels so unheard, because they think that conservatives are weak and pathetic, because they are, because we're promoting people like Caitlyn Jenner. We're promoting people who do not stand for traditional conservatism, and they see that.
Well, hey guys, everyone's looking at me all of a sudden. I find that the
was on
solution
purpose.
lies in the systems that we create. We've been working with we're building a charity that is building decentralized software where you can host your own content on a server of your choice or your own server and get direct subscriptions. You still have to worry about Verizon shutting you down and your ISP shutting you down.
Yeah.
Maybe Verizon is the ISP, but there's also a mesh networking app called Briar where you can actually download the app and text people offline with Bluetooth. So we're building up
We
the
used
mesh network.
Cruise it once.
Briar, awesome.
Not specifically. There was another app that did just that, and it was the craziest thing. They told everyone turn your Bluetooth on, and then everyone's phone acts like a cell tower. So you could message a friend, and your message is encrypted, and it bounces off of everyone's phone. Everyone's phone gets it, but only the one with the key would actually see the message pop up.
You can use it in a war if all the power goes out, for instance.
That's kind of awesome.
I'm coming here in a war.
Oh, dude, it's gonna be
No,
so
you would-
fun.
I mean, you can.
Let's
We're
play
not gonna be-
badminton.
Bro,
the reason I bring it
there's-
up
go ahead.
because I do believe that there needs to be more leaders, and but that not like people like Elon Musk. He doesn't come out and tell everyone, "Hey, I'm your leader now." He just makes great technology, and because of that, we look at him like a sort of leader. So I want to be kind of like I'm trying to do that.
Right. Yeah, that's what people need.
Let's do this. Let's do one more quick segment. Let's talk about war because we got it. The New York Times ran this story: the smaller bombs that could turn Ukraine into a nuclear war zone. A photo released by Russian state-owned news agency showing the Iskander-M launch vehicle being loaded with a ballistic missile during military exercises at a Russian firing range in the, how do you pronounce that? Usuriysk in 2016.
I don't know.
Now, this
Sorry.
is great. In destructive power, the behemoths of the Cold War dwarfed the American atomic bomb that destroyed Hiroshima. Washington's biggest test blast was 1,000 times as large. Moscow's was 3,000 times. On both sides, the idea was to deter strikes with threats of vast retaliation, with mutual assured destruction, or MAD. The psychological bar was so high that nuclear strikes came to be seen as unthinkable. Today, both Russia and the U.S. have nuclear arms that are much less destructive. Their power just fractions of the Hiroshima's bomb's force. Their use perhaps less frightening and more thinkable. So this is what I was talking about a few weeks ago when I said nuclear war it seems to me to be possible. And
But Tim, it's okay. It's good for the environment.
a
Remember,
decent
the media came out
probability.
and said that it's good for the environment.
Well, that was 10 years ago. I think USA Today had read an op-ed saying a small nuclear war could
Yeah.
be good for the environment. So what I'm saying is we might see nuclear artillery. We're going to see Russia will use, in my opinion, if they need to. If they are losing, I would not be surprised if Russia does use nukes. I don't know. Let me make sure I'm clarifying this. I don't know if the probability that Russia uses this is 10% or 2%. 50% or 1%, but Vladimir Putin continually threatens to use nukes as he will not back down. There are a lot of people who fear that NATO doesn't care, they're reckless, or Biden is completely inept. And what we'll end up seeing is Russia, they keep reporting, is being backed into a corner. I don't completely believe that. I think it would be absurd to think Ukraine could beat Russia. Russia's a massive power, even if it's not as big as NATO. It's like half as big as NATO. But if Russia gets pressed by NATO, they may say, okay, let's land the big guns. Gravity bombs, maybe something not as big as Hiroshima or Nagasaki, but powerful bombs. They're already using the thermobaric bombs. These things are crazy. The missile comes down ejects fuel, spraying it all through the air, and then sucks all the air up and explodes, like just vaporizing people. So they've already got very, very powerful but lower yield weapons. If Putin had to, I think he would use it. If NATO intervenes, I think it's possible he does. And then I'm worried about what happens to Europe. Will we actually see Russia say, you're not going to nuke us back, we can do what we want? And then, honestly, I was thinking about it earlier because there's a conspiracy theory. Someone predicted a year ago what's happening now. And so this meme's going viral where some guy's like, here's what's going to happen with Russia. And the next step they said was that NATO would get involved. Russia would threaten nuclear weapons. NATO would call their bluff. Russia would say, oh yeah, and then fire a nuke. And then you get nuclear war. I'm not entirely like, it seems far-fetched, but I also think it would be silly for us at this point. It would be optimism and normalcy bias to think a nuclear war would never happen.
I think specifically you're talking about explosive nuclear weapons too, because the Americans in Iraq in the second Iraq war used depleted uranium weapons because in order to penetrate armor in a tank that's made with the depleted uranium, you need depleted uranium bullets. So they just sprayed them across the desert. They're underground in the desert, irradiating the land.
Yeah, we're talking
that's
about
nuclear war. So
not all nuclear weapons have radioactive yield. That's intentional. So some of them actually don't. Some of them are just concussive shockwaves or explosive. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts? Do you think where do you think this goes, and what would you do?
See, all I would say to that is what's to deter Russia from using nuclear weapons?
They want to keep their country intact and they want to keep Ukraine intact.
But do you really think that Russia fears the U.S.? Does Russia fear NATO? Does Russia fear anyone right now? I mean, we were, under Donald Trump, and even Trump came out and said this. Russia didn't act this way. Putin didn't act this way when Trump was in office because Trump was a respected leader, whether or not the left wants to say that or not. Like he was, off the cuff. No one ever knew what was going to happen with him. Look what happened with Soleimani and Iran when they messed with America. Donald Trump, brought down the hammer. Look at Russia right now. They're not fearful of anything. They're not fearful of retaliation because we're not a superpower anymore. I really, would venture to say that. And again, with the whole NATO situation, I'm not a geopolitical expert, so, inform me on this point. But what is really to stop Russia from doing this?
Well, the U.S. is a superpower. The issue is
we're not the anymore per
exactly.
se. We're not the
that's
superpower.
The issue. Is that Thucydides' trap looms? And there's a conspiracy theory that Western powers for the past 20 years have known Thucydides' trap is a real possibility. And as we've already shown all of you, the liberal world order exists. The Council on Foreign Relations explains this, and they say there will be a new world order. Mm-hmm. One of the theories is that the powerful elites of the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, etc. I mean, these are organizations that outright just say they're doing these things. And you can call it a conspiracy. I don't know, whatever. Maybe they're lying. But CFR is NewsGuard certified. They say there's a liberal world order. Now, these people have to be aware of Thucydides' trap, that U.S. is a large economic power, the largest, and China is growing as an economic power, and that means World War III is likely. If your intention is to prevent World War III, then you need to stop Thucydides' trap from happening. Well, you can't stop China from growing, so what do? You cut off the tall grass in the U.S. You cripple the United States so that they fall as fast as China rises, and thus you avoid a war. I'm not saying that's true, but I'm saying it's certainly, one theory about the policies enacted by the Biden administration and the Obama administration that have seemingly hurt the United States. And not even them. I mean, George W. Bush and Bill Clinton as well.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even believe the narrative that the nuclear war is going to happen. I think it's always possible, right? Everything's possible. Ian might give me $1 million. So
possibly.
It is possible. We never actually know. But ultimately speaking, I think this is to stoke the fear with this idea. If there was going to be a real nuclear attack, I don't think the media would actually be discussing this. I think we'd be in preparation mode and something would be announced with like a genuine understanding. Hey, this is like how they did with Russia, how they go, they're going to invade on this day. Like, this is what's going to happen. And no one heard about this until Russia was going to invade. Now, of course, I joked about it that week. I go, that was the 0-day war because they kept getting it wrong. And if you leave it up to the Biden administration to literally be stupid enough to like announce the exact day that he knows he's going to invade, as if, Putin's going to be like, okay, I'll go ahead and keep to the date so we don't change our dinner plans. But he ended up invading. He ended up going inside and going, first the peacekeeping mission and then moving forward. But ultimately, everything I hear is about creating hatred, not just for Russia, but for Russians. And the hatred for Russians is why I don't believe the nuclear side. Because anything they can use to get people to distance themselves and recreate an iron curtain, an iron wall between that nation seems to be at hand. And there's one thing I know, not everyone cares about anything, but everybody knows nuclear war, especially boomers and people who grew up, and had to do the drills underneath their desks. They're aware of this. They've been around the bush here, and they don't want that. And nobody wants that. And that's why I think they start to say like small nuclear warheads, because the chances of Russia, like they know it's ludicrous letting off these megaton warheads. This is not going to happen. So they have to shrink the threat. This is the first time I've ever heard in history, and I might be wrong, where we're talking about micro warheads, and we're back to micro penises and micro warheads. Everything's shrinking back.
We've been talking about this for a few weeks.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant like not this story today. I've heard this argument. I meant now it's like where they have to kind of change the threat from something that we've never had this global discussion on micro warheads to like this might happen. And I always feel like with the Ghost of Kiev, Snake Island, the video that came out today that you mentioned on Twitter, it's been nothing but propaganda, to the point that I just put pictures up from my trip in Ukraine and people needed to debunk them. Like I'm sitting here right now, fast flight.
But the nuclear war angle is actually preventing NATO from intervening.
But I don't think so though, because I think that Putin is pretty, if you watch what his speeches are, not that I would believe everything he says, he's kind of upfront about what he wants. And I think the issue, even if you go back to Noam Chomsky trying to explain what's been happening inside of Ukraine, he's not okay with it being militarized. He does not want it armed. He wants a neutral position between NATO and Russia. He knows these are two different worlds. Could Putin do anything? Anyone could. Because we want a different idea for our society, for our life. It's a whole new movement. He cares about...
Why does he want Ukraine to be neutral?
Because that's right at his border.
So is Estonia and Latvia.
Yeah, but I think Ukraine actually has, I believe they're more corrupted in terms of with our own regime and government. I think it's a puppet arm of the United States.
But Estonia and Latvia are NATO members.
Yes, but I'm saying I think Ukraine specifically, like as we're seeing now, I don't know if we're going to donate, like with Georgia, I don't know if we're going to really donate arms and really fight as hard as you would think, but Ukraine sits as a middle puppet that we control, that we don't control, but it's still for money laundering, it's a U.S. proxy.
It is, in my opinion, nothing to do with neutrality. Vladimir Putin wants access to their only warm water port in Crimea, and if Ukraine goes EU, they cut Russia off. So Russia moves in through the east. They go into the country. They're effectively trying to bifurcate from the north and the south. Ultimately, I don't know where Putin goes with this. Neutrality is, I believe, part of his goal. I think it has a lot to do with him wanting to maximize energy sales into Europe, which is what essentially helps fund the Russian economy. But I think Crimea, there's a reason he took it instantly. Russia has one warm water port in the Black Sea, one warm water port. It's in the Black Sea. It's Crimea. And they need more than just, going south through Crimea. They need the land bridge to the north. That, I think, is why Putin is doing it. He doesn't care about Estonia and Latvia.
Sure.
Because he doesn't have anything there. He has Kaliningrad. He has access to the Baltic Sea already. So he doesn't care about these other states.
It's an onion. I think it's multifaceted. And I think if you've seen this, all we've heard about Ukraine the last few years has been American corruption, money laundering, elitist families, and even Trump. You saw that, back that old clip where he's literally sitting with Zelensky saying this is a very corrupt country that deals with massive layers of corruption, meaning we've known this is a problem state, and Putin's been aware of this too. But I'm just saying, when Noam Chomsky and me are agreeing that something's very wrong in the world in general, saying and warning just in 2018, hey, the media has been deceiving the Ukrainian people, Western media, into thinking they can be a Western nation, but it has been understood with Gorbachev on that any sort of push to move Western in Ukraine would end in a bloody war and would end in some sort of aggression from the Russian government. No matter what leader was in power, he was saying they're not going to accept that and they're going to invade. So I'm just saying that they've been duped just like we're standing with Ukraine. I think the Ukrainians don't realize that the proxy that they have and the importance of that position. I believe the West pushed this invasion to be necessary. I don't think if we had pulled out, not installed our own regime, not created a revolution through social media, I don't think this would have happened now. But I do believe that because of the inability for the West and the East to somehow leave some country alone, we can't leave anybody alone. This was going to happen eventually.
You want to know? There's a simple reason why Ukrainians favor the EU, and you know what it is?
What?
Holodomor.
Yeah.
That's really the big. So
it's a really horrifying story.
Russia wants to expand its power. They want the Russian Trade Federation. The EU obviously wants to expand, wants the breadbasket of Europe. when I went to Ukraine and talked to a lot of people, they all said, we have the opportunity to either join with Russia and have this trade federation, which would benefit us greatly, or the EU, which would be, very similar. And then a lot of people were like, we don't trust Russia because they genocided our people.
Yeah, the Holodomor, a man-made famine convulsed the Soviet Republic of Ukraine from 1932 to 33. How many people died? How many people starved to death?
Isn't it like tens of millions?
So many.
Yeah,
Surprised
because the Soviets had disdain for the Ukrainians as a people and wanted to...
man-made
But didn't in
famine,
World
dude.
War II, technically still they gave a lot of their own lives to their troops to
3.9
defend
million.
Kiev. I mean, or to like sort of to fight in Ukraine.
The Soviets?
Wasn't there quite a bit of troops
The
they lost?
Soviets executed all the intellectuals in Eastern Europe, took over. The communists were just like a malignancy of evil.
Yeah, but Russian history goes way before the Soviets. I'm just saying, like, that's
Yeah, the
obviously
Soviets
a period. But I'm not defending the Soviet time, but I'm saying this idea of a Russian federation of the Russian people. I do believe there is some shared understanding and value. I mean, it's not too long ago with
I'm not talking about my opinion on Russia. I'm saying
Yeah.
the Ukrainians I spoke with said, we don't trust the Russians. We know it happened 20 years ago. I mean, what year was the Holodomor? It was like late...
32, 33.
I wouldn't trust
Between
the Americans
31 and
or the
34.
Russians.
And then you had just the Soviet Union going until, only 20 or 30 years ago. So these people are like, nah, not interested. They're like, we'll take the capitalists in Europe for all their faults. So...
Yeah, but
that's
I'm saying I
sentiment.
think the media brainwashed them into thinking that could happen. Like, that's my whole point, is that our media, tells us things that are absolutely false. That there was, we were safe in Afghanistan, that it was going to be a smooth pullout, and it wasn't a smooth pullout. It was literally like a, end of prom night, sloppy pullout.
It was a surrender, a literal military surrender.
Right. And they said it wasn't like Vietnam, but it was. I'm saying I do believe that our media, that the influenced by NATO in the West, has tricked them into thinking that they could be a part of the West without a war. And I'm not blaming them. Do whatever the hell you want with your own country. You don't like the Russians? Fine. But just so you know, if you want this, you're going to have the situation on your hand with 10 million refugees. And I'm not blaming the people for getting duped. I'm saying I believe that if this continued the way it did, as we're seeing, it was going to be unavoidable, because Russia wasn't going to put up with it, even if it's for whatever reason you said, or things that we don't know, because I'm not an expert, despite the joke that I'm an Eastern European war expert, because everyone is now.
Right.
Because I put a Russia and a Ukraine flag in my bio, so now I know I'm an expert.
Solidarity.
Yeah. I just going to say, I think we'll find out the real point of this as time goes on. And if he's going to push forward, no crap. I mean, I'm not going to accept that. I wouldn't accept Russia pushing further into Europe, and I don't think any European country should, and I hope we don't ever get there.
Let's go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show if you really like it, and go to timcast.com, become a member. We're going to have a very spicy members-only show, I can just tell, and you're going to love it. So that will be over at timcast.com around 11 or so p.m. Sign up, help us out. And let's read some of these Super Chats. Make 1984 fiction again, says Elijah. You cannot claim to be against authoritarianism and grow an undeniable symbol of authority under your nose like that.
Oh,
That's
thank
fair.
you. I'm not fully against authoritarianism.
And I thought the mustache was gorgeous.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, a mustache March is it's going to go into mustache May.
It's not the worst.
When you think of
mustache.
liberty and authority, how do you balance those out on the variance scale,
True.
percentage-wise?
If you start seeing the mustache shrinking towards the middle, you should get
That's
worried.
Are you okay with like
Authoritarian.
23% authority, 67, what is it, 77%?
If I start having an obsession
liberty?
with the Roman salute and stuff,
Yeah.
Call me.
Exactly. Yeah,
You got
will
it,
do.
All right, let's see. Hamrod says, Tim, regarding my Dan Crenshaw chat yesterday, an audio came out of Dan saying he's not establishment, but YouTubers are. Also, thanks for having Elijah on. Did you hear about that? Dan Crenshaw saying YouTubers were establishment or something?
I heard that.
Dan,
Yeah, he said that
One-Eye Crenshaw?
influencers, conservative influencers, were grifters.
Dan
is that-
Crenshaw!
Did he actually say grifter?
I don't know if he said grifter, but that's essentially what he was saying, is that they were...
How do you really feel about Dan Crenshaw,
we
Sav?
love Dan Crenshaw. We absolutely love him. We have actually we don't have a Barbie doll in memory of Dan Crenshaw. We have Madison Cawthorn though. Yeah, we do.
We have a Madison Cawthorn Barbie.
Yeah, we do.
All right.
He's
Friedrich.
like, what?
I don't know him yet.
Also
Friedrich
known as
Borman.
Wheels.
Friedrich Borman says, Tim, would you be interested in speaking with the most prominent Russian libertarian, Mikhail Svetov? You can reach him on Twitter at msvetov. He is a former chairman of Russian Libertarian Party and organized one of the biggest protests in Russian history. Interesting. We'll take a look. We'll look into him.
I'm going to check him out.
Yep. Tomahawk says, read your comments about Star Trek versus Wars. The politics in the prequels is actually pretty interesting. Alex Jones did a video on it where he talks about the conspiracy the elites employed to start a civil war and gain power. Yeah, that's true. I do like that. The prequel politics, although I don't think the movies were particularly well made. I just think Star Trek has a large swath of really great philosophical, moral, and ethical content. It's very interesting. Good stuff. Eric Cecil says Reddit got 2 battalions of the Ukrainian Foreign Legion killed by sharing their location via metadata on their posts. I don't think a lot of people are thinking about this decision because of media lionization, but I hope they get a lot of upvotes. So, yeah, that was one of the stories we didn't get to. It's a viral post on Reddit where people were celebrating like, hey, we're here with, we're volunteering for Ukraine. We're a bunch of untrained random people who came here. And the Russians, who are sophisticated military experts, said, we can easily identify where this building is. And then they blew it up.
Duh.
That's the problem with what social media people trying to go to Ukraine for clout and get clicks on a photo.
I'm getting nervous now. Like 3 days before you were leaving, you kept putting up pictures in the studio, slightly offensive studio,
Yeah,
with like
yeah.
geotags. And I'm like,
Geolocation?
she kept saying, hey, I'm here.
Here's my exact
He stands with
location,
Ukraine.
guys.
He stands with Ukraine. That was very weird. Now we know
That
why.
is weird.
Can't
I'm
blow up a-
CIA, says Tim.
Dude,
Have you
it's too
seen
small.
who's the new president of Earth in Star Trek Discovery? I think you'll agree she's out of this world.
Is that Stacey Abrams?
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
old
Star Trek
Stacey.
Discovery isn't Star Trek. It's fan fiction.
The first president to also have their own gravitational pull.
Oh, yeah.
They
Oh.
orbit
Wonderful,
planets
yes.
and moons orbit them.
Correct.
Stacey Abrams.
Ross says, Tim, I feel your view
So
about
dumb.
no shadowy cabal to control everything is naive. Biden is doing the bidding of his masters in the Federal Reserve, privately and foreign investors owned. They funded Lenin. This is business as usual. So what I was saying, when Biden said we created a liberal world order, and then every 3 to 4 generations there's like a big event, and 60 million people died, and then he was like, there will be a new world order. It's funny because he's like referencing the fourth turning. So my point was, what happens at the World Economic Forum, I think people assume there's like a big grand table where they all sit around and Joe Biden's like, all right, masters, tell me what to do. That's not what happens. These people have meetings. They have shared goals. It's easier. Like the problem with a lot of people's view of these things, that there's like an organization to it, is that actually, in my opinion, gives them more credit than they deserve. And it actually is less scary. The scarier thing is that there is an ideological, there's a sphere of influence of powerful elites who get together and they pull people in, and some people pop out. But this sphere, this hive, this swarm exists.
That's what, when you guys were talking about superpowers earlier, and who is it? Is it China or the U.S.? But I think it's like the SWIFT payment system and the Bank of International Settlements. The Federal Reserve sold us out, man. And that thing, if it wants to shut your country off from your economy, that's one of the greatest powers you have on earth.
But so it's essentially a rich person can enter the sphere of influence, and it's not like anyone tells them what to do. Bezos or Bill Gates, certainly people came before them, right? It's that you reach this level, and then you get invited to these meetings where you sit down and they say, what do you think? You've got this big company. And then everyone talks, and ultimately they all align themselves cooperatively, not authoritatively. You know what I mean?
Isn't it kind of crazy how Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey and a bunch of these billionaires were meeting together talking about depopulation? That was a Wall Street Journal article. You can look that up back in 2015, I believe. They all got together. They were talking about depopulation efforts.
That's the point. There's no boss of them.
Well, I think they were talking about slowing the population growth. It's different than actually depopulating.
Gotcha. Correct.
I will say this, though. True Wealth is receiving a gift from Ian.
That's right.
This thing's
That's
heavy,
bringing it up.
too.
I'm going to
Yeah.
request a
True-
roll from
true
both of you.
gifts.
Yeah.
You're holding up the 100-sided
How
die.
do you even roll this?
Very
just
slowly,
roll it.
or it's
Yeah.
just going to keep rolling.
Every time I'm here, I see
a die,
something
roll
that I
it.
didn't know
Just-
existed.
There it goes.
Loud, I know.
Into the
It's going to
gems.
you.
All right, what is it?
What do the gems do, Ian?
All sorts.
Okay,
They
the
vibrate.
top number is 81.
Oh, very
Interesting.
nice. Nice roll.
That's a
81.
great roll.
I feel like they're
Very
like
cool.
dragon stones.
I'm going to grab that later.
Oh,
I
yeah,
know they're
yeah.
heavy.
I love them.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
I do.
All right,
Cool.
let's
Look at
read
this
these
one.
super chats. We got 2 super chats I'm going to read, and you'll like them both. Porkins Holt says Tim is 100% right. Elijah forgot how to fight.
Oh.
But Robert Delvick Silverton says Elijah is right. Everybody who needs the slim chance of making a life do not dare question the branch they are standing on.
So the second guy was right. Good job, man. You wanna hear that?
Well, I'll give you another one. Brian Knoll says 100% with Elijah. Your arrogance, Tim, is causing you to lack any empathy for these girls. You have to remember these women are young. They don't have the life experience. Thank you, Elijah. Well put. Well, I blame their parents.
I was going to say, Tim, one thing that we share in common is that people tell us that we don't shut up, we don't let our guests talk, and we're arrogant. So I'm glad to know that we have the same haters. They're probably the same commenters. Like, they're at your show, they're like buying a comment on Tim
Just like
Pool.
copy and paste.
And copy, and they just changed
Change
Tim
it
with
to
Elijah.
Yeah.
You know, the issue with the parents on this one is that they're all in
Same
college.
haters.
These kids, these grown adult women are in college at this point, so their parents aren't involved anymore.
I mean,
They're
this
adults.
is the craziest thing to me. It's like, how old are they? They're adults. They're in their 20s.
Dude, but think about your mentality when you were 18 to 22.
These are
I was
kids.
an idiot. I was an idiot.
I didn't know much at all.
That's what I'm saying. It's like when you're 18 to 22, like you're just taking drugs,
I
drinking,
blame the
going to
parents.
raves.
That was
Have
you,
you-
I guess.
have you
Not
spoken-
me.
Have you
I was
spoken-
23 when I
majority
started
is
smoking
doing.
pot.
Sav, you spoke to the college students about the penises and the
Yeah,
periods.
I did.
I watched you. What did they say? Because I could not believe what I was listening to. This is who's in college now.
No, I mean, I said the quote earlier that what men can get periods, they can get pregnant, women have penises. They were saying, and I asked them, I was like, so have you seen Leah Thomas stand next to, her female athletes and competitors? And they're like, no, we can't see a biological difference. They look exactly the same.
I think it's very stark, but that's because it was a man that transitioned into a woman, and that stands.
It's just your opinion, Ian. It's not
just-
the fact that Leah Thomas has
Yo.
broad shoulders and is 6 feet tall.
Look, man, if
broad female.
if you have one faction that is willing to burn down cities and the other faction is like, Tim, don't get mad at people who won't stand up for themselves. Like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
that-
we are kind of in a war.
Look,
You're right.
When the Democrats accuse Brett Kavanaugh of being party to gang rape
Yeah.
on more than one occasion, and the best the right can muster up is Josh Hawley saying, I have concerns about your lenient sentences. And he actually went on to say, I do believe Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson will have a coherent and thoughtful response. I believe she's will be able to well explain this. So I
How'd you
appreciate
say
it.
her
And we'll
first
just-
name?
We'll just Ketanji.
That's how we've been saying it. I don't know.
I think
But the
that's right.
point is, I tweeted this. If the Republicans were as arrogant, or I said as ruthless and had the callousness and ruthlessness of the Democrats, they'd be calling Ketanji Brown a pedophile.
Yep.
But the Republicans are extremely weak, at least relative to Democrats. Now, you can say principled in a sense that they don't want to, besmirch the decorum of the chamber, and they're trying to be fair and reasonable. But this is my point. When you have, I'm not asking these young girls to throw away their careers, but I'm asking to take a small risk, right? So some people have said, okay, Tim, but you support YouTube. You're using the platform. They censor people. And I'm like, yeah, and we've had Steve Bannon on, 3 times, 4 times? How many? Alex Jones on 4 times?
Yep.
We regularly, do everything we can to, these are people who are censored. We've brought them back to the platform. And we'll keep doing things like that. And then we set up timcast.com where we can carry out other conversations. And then we advocate for things like Rumble. So we're absolutely speaking up and trying to push back while being a part of this. If these young women at the swim meets were like, hey, we all kind of have an issue with this, we're going to swim, I'd be like, right on. I respect that. My issue is the only person to speak up is the one who got bumped. Like, not even the person right above her is like, yeah, that's not cool. She got bumped. She won't even say anything.
Was she out of an NDA or something? That was my question to you. Is that I'm wondering if while they're in the competition, it would be interesting to find out if there's certain rules on not making political statements or something like that.
Well, that's what they were told, is that
'Cause
they
once
had
you're
to be
bumped, maybe you
silent about Leah Thomas because it was such a controversial issue, which is why none of them spoke out except for Rose Pouch, who is the athlete that I interviewed.
Because I've been involved in an organization before when I was in high school, and it was like a student leadership type thing. Now, of course, it was a very far left progressive California group, but it was very keen on not making political statements. And I always find this ironic with Turning Point, like, we're a nonprofit, we can't make political statements. I'm like, okay, I get what you're saying, but you're a political group. But I know some
That's
people.
true, though.
No, I know. I'm saying that's a little different, but I'm wondering if they're just thinking like, hey, yeah, like Leah Thomas can't make a political statement. I can't, even though Leah Thomas is a political statement. Like, the existence is a political statement. I think, and you would even argue, yeah, them swimming is a political statement, that they agree because they're not quitting. Maybe they just don't understand what a political statement is, and they don't realize that it's just going to take one to speak to open up the floodgate. Or I'm wrong, and they all agree and they're brainwashed like the rest of America, which sucks.
All right, here's another one. Pork and Salt says, Tim is right. Y'all are short-sighted, and our kids will suffer when we die. Imagine the founders if they didn't fight because they'd lose it all. Excuses. It's a good debate. I will be honest.
Didn't less than 1%? But I might be wrong with this? But in the revolution, didn't like 1% or less? And I might sound like a total idiot right now. Like, actually fight in the war of the population. Maybe it was more than that. But I was reading.
We don't actually know. Some say it's 3%.
Right. So what I was saying is that my point wasn't that we don't need fighters. It's sad that we're in a point where we expect not only everyone to fight, but like women too, where like I wish the fight against this was with male administrators that were fighting for what's going on in the university, and dads and parents, not like these girls who are like, hey, you better not swim. It's like, that's what it's gotten down this far. You're like, that sucks. Cause yeah.
All right, so we got this from Xenthius, who says, if I stood up for what I believed, I would never work a day in my life, and no way would I be able to provide for my fiance's immigration into the USA. My response to that is, you care more about your fiance's immigration than you do the values of the United States. If that statement offends you, that says more about your own values than mine, because typically when I tell people this, they get really mad. So I've told this story before, who said, I really want to do what you do. I want to travel the world and do journalism. And then I said, well, then go do it. Mm-hmm. The response to me was, I can't afford it. And I was like, you have a Williamsburg apartment for like several $1,000s a month. Get rid of the apartment, sleep on couches, and you can do it. And they said, but I like my apartment. And I'm like, then you like your apartment more than traveling the world and reporting on news. And they got really mad. And they're like, that's not true. I should have a right to live in a nice apartment and travel. And I'm like, I don't care about what you think your rights are. I'm pointing out you've got X amount of cash. You can choose to do one of two things. You've made your choice, showing where your priorities lie. So for Xenthius, I'm not issuing this as a moral statement or a value statement. I'm saying you care more about your fiance than you do about the USA. And maybe that's fine. I don't know.
Start pouring single, right, Sam?
It's a hardline stance
true.
to have, but it is true. I mean, like I said, this is a war. Like, whether or not we want to admit it, we are in a psychological war, if you will. And we have two separate factions of America. So what Tim is saying is right. If people want to enact real change, they're going to have to make big sacrifices. And that means losing your job, telling your fiance no for the next couple of years. But that's the reality of it.
But there are softer ways, and I do want to explain this. Like, when I got into this career, I didn't quit my job, my day job, until a year into this, when I knew I could support myself. And I want to remind people, not on Patreon, that if you do have dreams or you do want to do stuff, sometimes we feel like we're left with two options, like Russia or Ukraine, rather than saying, well, I don't really stand with either. I stand with the people of both, but not either. Sometimes there is other options, and there are other ways around things. So I always say, when you're stuck between this like forced major of, hey, you got to choose and your life's going to get ruined if you don't do this, ask yourself if there is a way to ease into the values that you want to appeal to or that you want to be, even if you're not ready now to like lose your job. Well, find out if you can protest more at work and start with something. I'm saying start with something to move yourself in the direction so you don't live a hypocritical life. If you're not willing to make that big of a jump, at least make a small step and start making a strategic plan to getting to a point to where maybe you start your own business now so that you can quit the job and that you finally will be able to make the jump. And I don't think there's anything wrong with strategy.
There was a band in the 90s, and I was reading the story. The lead singer ended up getting a job as a manager of a theater. And it was like this article was like very disparaging. Like, wow, how, he was this big famous musician, and now what is he doing? Manager at a theater. And that's a scary story, the way that society treats you if you have this, prominent position and you lose it. Mm-hmm. So I remember when I was working for Fusion, I had an ABC News badge. I was in the ABC News building. I had access to go around. Whoopi Goldberg's in the elevator. I'd walk out, and there were people there were these gates and security guards, and no one could go anywhere near the doors, and they're always waiting, trying to get autographs. And I'm like, man, look where I am in this building. 1 block from Central Park. There's all of these prominent ABC personalities. I was getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And then I was like, I can't do what they want me to do, and I don't want to be here. Because they were like, our audience is young and progressive, and that's what we're going to do, and that's what we want you to do. And so I told the president, we had a meeting. This was, I think we were in Vegas at the time, and I was like, break my contract. I can't do this anymore. And the scary thing to me was, I was like, if I break this contract for these reasons, I'm not going to work in New York media ever again. It's done. These people have already started claiming that I was racist because they were all woke and I refused to play their game. They were talking smack about me because I had appeared on Fox News after a Trump supporter got hit in the back with a bag of rocks. And I said, I'd rather be a theater manager than work in this industry. And after I left Fusion, there was like 5 months of me literally doing nothing. I didn't know what to do. I'd wake up, and then I would do like some live streams here and there. I'd wake up and play Destiny, the video game. And then I thought to myself, as I pulled out of my savings, I was like, man, I don't know what I can do. I don't know where I'm supposed to go from here. There's no me getting a job at any of these companies now. They've all lost their minds, and I don't want to work for them anyway. I had meetings with Vox. I had meetings with BuzzFeed. And I was just like, this was before Fusion. And I was just like, there's no way I'm going to those companies after everything that happened at Fusion. So what am I going to do? And I was like, man, I might have to just leave New York, go back to the suburbs of Chicago, and just work in consulting or something. And then I was like, all right, well, for the time being, I'll start working as hard as I can. But it was terrifying.
Yeah.
It was scary. And for the first few months of doing YouTube, I was negative, and it cost me a large portion of my savings. And then I was like, but I'm going to find a way to get through this. It took me a year to get out of the red and into the black. And then once I got into the black, I was down probably tens of thousands of dollars.
Tim and C, I'm so happy you're sharing this story because so many people in our society today, we live in such an instant gratification society. They expect to get on YouTube, be famous immediately, make it. They expect to go out on the streets, get that viral clip, get on Tucker Carlson right away. And when it doesn't happen, they give up. And that's the difference between winners and losers, is that everybody is going to fail at one point or another, but the winners continue to keep pushing forward until they reach their goal. So I'm so glad you said that story because, it really shows the reality of this industry, of success as a whole. It's hard to get there. It doesn't happen overnight. You will struggle. You will have to sacrifice your own savings account financially, mentally, physically. I've seen it from everybody in this industry. People have to sacrifice so much, but once they achieve their goals, everyone's looking at them now and is like, well, I want to do that too. Why can't I do it?
I met
try harder.
The guitarist from Death Cab for Cutie. It's a band, if you guys have, I don't know if you heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked him what was the key to success. He said, just keep playing music.
Yeah.
Because so many people will, you've got all these bands around you when you're young, but one by one, they all quit, they give up. And then eventually, before you realize it, you're just the band that's left. So people know who you are because everyone else stopped. And if people want music, it's like, well, you've been around for a long time, so people have heard of you, they come to your shows, and then before you realize it, you're just the last remaining band from your generation or whatever, from your group. And that was really it. It was like perseverance.
It does work. I want to say this to attest to your actual living out your belief there. Obviously, you're making good money. You're working for Alex Jones, a legend. And then you wanted to go out and to report. In order to do so, you had to work for me. I know. So you went so many steps down to try to attain your goal. And I got to say this. Living off of $37 a week in a pack of Trident gum, you persisted, you continued, and now you're independent and the super uber famous journalist who's getting with Jordan Peterson and everybody, and that just shows it. You work really hard, but on the real side though too, I think that's what I was saying with the calculatedness, and I know your eagerness too, Tim, on this, but I tell people like genuinely even now, this is why it's hard for me to comment. Like there are compromises I've made to stay on YouTube or to stay on sites that I could be more honest or more truthful or say more, that I have thought that the trade-off for having a stable income with my family is not worth it. Like just so I can right now on this, live stream, call Leah Thomas the pronoun your live stream. I'm not going to risk your livelihood so that I can be right? I'm not going to do that. That's different. It's your livelihood. But I'm also saying I understand that you got to be calculated, because I always talk about this too, that I see with the young people. This is why ISIS goes after the young men. Some people think that bravery is just charging the front lines in World War I. There's no reason to be cannon fodder. There's no reason to just sacrifice your life like where some people were. It's to be actually calculated, because I promise this to people. The idea of like, when I've spoken to people, I was like, well, if I don't get vaccinated, then I'm going to get fired. And I go, you're looking at this wrong. You're looking at this like you have two choices. The reality is that, like, I even asked someone, I go, did you think about moving states? Did you think about moving from a for-profit to a non-profit hospital? Did you think about moving to a religious institution where the exemptions could work in a religious hospital? Have you thought about something like that where it won't work, but you could have a religious argument here at this Catholic place? And I've asked people, do you know you could change things? And also, reminder, that you could also, like, sometimes you can actually work for a private firm, which is not medical, be a consultant, be a remote nurse doing Zoom calls and whatnot, or a Zoom doctor, and you can actually do these kinds of things. So I just meant people calculate it. You don't have to go from being a grifter or a martyr. Like, you don't have to just jump the gun. There is a middle ground.
So we have Timcast.com. So everything you want to say, we're going to say in 3 minutes when we switch to the Timcast website. So I recognize we get a lot of free stuff from YouTube. This is what people need to hear. You get a lot of free stuff from YouTube. They give us free advertising. I've not paid for any marketing for this show. All organic. But that means YouTube's algorithm, or by choice, for some reason we've appeared and been suggested. And then I can use that to be like, okay, everybody go to our website, become members, and then we're going to have conversations that these bigger platforms don't want us to have. That way the conversations still happen. We have Steve Bannon on. He can say everything he wants. We have you guys here. We're going to go nuts in the members only show. And that's the platform we build. And truth be told, We've been, it's way safer. We're seeing now with what Dan Bongino is doing with Parallel Economy and Rumble, how they're building up alternates, and that's what needs to happen. So I had a super chat. It's gone now.
No.
Because sometimes it jumps.
Dang it.
But the point somebody was making is that
it disappeared, but it's Tim's really, really, really cool. He's the greatest human that ever existed. I think it disappeared.
No, it was.
But
we need to keep
That's what it was,
working
yeah.
on our own systems, make our own movies, make our own shows,
Yeah, 100%.
set up our own websites. If you're concerned about censorship, it doesn't mean abandon Twitter or YouTube. It means use the other platforms, Minds, for instance, and make your own website where they can't ban you from your own site. Granted, financial services and third parties can still come after you. But it's time to start building infrastructure, man.
Bro, I'm building a website right now to try to keep myself there. And every time you think you figured out another potential loophole that they could take you down, it's come down to like, okay, so starting with building your own server.
Dude, you can't even get emails. It's like, MailChimp, deleted, canceled, sorry. Bad politics, we're not going to give you your emails. You're like, great, thank
Start
you.
mails. That's what I meant. You have to go, okay, email, server,
there's so many
internet
different
provider,
aspects.
website hosting. Like you go, who owns even the website domain? And you're going through this, you're going, wow, the reason why we haven't won this yet is because we need a lot more smart people and a lot more money not going into nonprofits that are doing nothing, but into actually for-profits and things that can hire people and make a change.
And we need to slow our thoughts down in general. I think you were saying like the age of instant gratification. And Elijah, you were talking about how important it is to be calculating. And I think a lot of people, when offered a choice A, B, they feel like they have to make the choice. And you don't. Not only do you not have to answer the way people expect you to, you don't have to answer. And you can think about it. You don't have to sign the contract when it's handed to you. You can read it. You can take as much time as you want because it's your contract.
Dude, people cap themselves so much, and it's insane to me. Like, again, this goes back to our entire education system where we're taught to be subservient to authority. People think there's only option A and B. People don't see that they can do whatever they want with their life. You can be Tim Pool if you want to, if you work hard enough. You can do whatever you want in this life. But people think it's like, well, if I'm going to be a doctor, I just have to be a doctor. That's it. I can't be good at anything else. If I'm going to be on YouTube, I just have to be a YouTuber. That's it. Nothing else. People cap themselves so much.
People should watch my old YouTube videos and just be like, man, that guy sucks.
Were they horrendous?
Probably, yeah, really bad.
Dude, the first time I was on with Alex, I'm like embarrassed for people to pull it up one day because it was horrific.
Yeah, I was so
my
nervous
hands
when
are
I
like
started.
this the whole time. Like, I'm like this.
That's my that's where I'm at in my career. Me too, dude. He's like, it was horrible. This is where I was like, this is my current state.
All right, let's read this one more super chat before we go to the members only. We've got Brody Nevis who says, "Hey, been a fan of yours and Crowder since 2016. I'm 22 and I share your show and his to my family, but they still believe in the same stuff as the left and I want to leave CA. What do I do to get out of here and convince my family the left is wrong? If you can show your family that Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Jussie Smollett, the Covenant Kids, Russiagate, Ahmaud Arbery, the list goes on, all of those stories were proven false and they still believe it, I think it's not an issue of, I think the issue is more so they know it's not true, but they don't want to admit it. They're not smart enough to realize, and they'll keep falling for it. I think that's what you're dealing with. And if that's the case, you're going to be on your own, and you have to figure things out for yourself.
Yeah, you got to impress them in the way that they speak the language of. Like when I talk to my mom, I'll be like, we're making world-changing social media technology. And she'll be like, oh, that's great. Are you making enough money, honey? Like she just cares that I'm making money because that's her world. So if you want to impress those people, you need to entice them with their own language. It's annoying. And if you don't want to do that, then don't. You walk away from it.
I think, bet big, win big. Play big, win big, so they say casinos.
High risk, high reward.
High risk, high reward. I lived in Chicago. I had an apartment. I took a ride share to California with $200 in cash, and that's how I moved to LA. And then that was it. I was homeless. Fortunately, a friend of mine had been out there and let me crash a couple days. And then I was like just prepared to go live on the beach, but I found a job almost right away. And then I got lucky with this one. Someone let me crash at their place. So I feel like it's a question of what are you willing to sacrifice? And the more you're willing to sacrifice, the bigger risk you're willing to take, the bigger rewards exist for you. And for me, because I was like, honestly, don't care if I sleep outside, that gave me more freedom to find opportunities people wouldn't normally take. And if your concern is you want a stable life and you need a stable life, you're going to have a harder time scouting out and finding opportunities. but you'll be stable. You'll be safe.
Yeah,
It's the image of stable, though. The stability is not really that real.
There
in
is no.
reality.
There's
there is no stability, and this is not the whatever ego moment in real life, but I mean this genuinely. There's a reason why it is easier if you are not married and you don't have children to take certain risks. Genuinely, I'm encouraging that. There's a reason why you don't see a lot of stable married people, even in this industry specifically, and in whatever you want to do to change the world, it may not be even that possible. Meaning, I find that a lot of people that I've met who do this, for instance, had a homeless, sort of pseudo-homeless time of their life where they had to risk a lot to get where they are. I mean, I lived on the YouTuber Flecka's couch. He supported me financially in the beginning. I didn't make any money until I could monetize my channel and get it up. He came through. I mean, that guy was probably like literally just the most clutch person I've ever seen, who was like, hey, I know what this takes, bro. Let's go ahead and do it. But for someone who left California, myself, I encourage you to do a few things. Number one, like go to my channel, Slightly Offensive, look up like the homeless people of LA, look up why I left California, then go to the videos that are suggested after it. You will see the stories. And I have a video with Flecka's where I'm born and raised in California. We literally talk about all the reasons why we're leaving. And there are videos on YouTube, and they're entertaining and they're done in a funny way just to say, hey, A, B, C, and D, as you stay here and give tax dollars, you support this. And if you don't, then get out. And that's what a lot of us did.
We are going to go to the members only segment. So if you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show if you really do like it. That's the most powerful thing you can do. Go to timcast.com. We're going to have up at about 11 p.m. the members only show, which is going to get very spicy. I can already tell. And you can follow the show at Timcast IRL basically everywhere except TikTok, where we're banned. You can follow me at Timcast basically everywhere. Elijah, you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, obviously, if you're wanting to watch a podcast that is pure insanity, go to youtube.com/slightly offensive. It has been so insane and so crazy. President Zelensky was on our last episode trying to shill Ukrainian vodka. It's just crazy. And also, you can catch us live at 6 p.m. Central on You Are Here. But of course, don't compete with Timcast at the hour. But we appreciate you guys, and make sure you can find me on every social media and alt social media from Gab. I am on Getter and Twitter and some of the other ones. But I'm pretty much everywhere where people are, because I don't give a crap about the companies and as much as trying to get the content out. So follow me there, Slightly Offensive, and You Are Here.
Savannah?
All right, guys. Thank you again for having me on. You guys can go follow me. Since I've been twice banned on Twitter now, my on-the-ground reporting will live primarily on Truth Social at Sav Says and Instagram at Sav with one N. I have my own YouTube channel, Sav Says. Go check it out. And I also have my own podcast called Rapid Fire with Savannah Hernandez, where I talk about political commentary and my on-the-ground reporting. Also, savsaysofficial.com, my website. Go check it out. And again, thank you guys so much.
Oh, so much fun. Thanks for
You guys
coming,
are
man.
great.
It's great to meet you finally.
I know. I'm so happy.
And
you guys are
wonderful
awesome.
man. I love you so much.
That is the nicest thing anybody's.
I love you, too.
Tim knows this too. It's like some people that hate watch. It's like you open up your DMs. It's like stuff I can't even read. You're like,
I can't even read it.
I always like to post. I'm like, I guess people love me so much they hate me.
Yeah, that's how it works.
True.
Yep.
Oh, I have a beat on Muse's new album, which is coming out. Do you guys know what it's called?
No, what is
Will of
it?
the People.
Will of the People.
Nice.
This is Tim's single. I don't know if you know that,
Is
but
there singing on it? Or is it just?
I don't know anything about it yet. But it was the name of Tim's first single is Will of the People. It's
Well,
really
obviously,
like
Matthew Bellamy saw and he was like,
I gotta do it.
Tim's a great
either that or there's
musician.
something about the will of the people that we need to pay attention to right
Maybe
now.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Who's controlling the will of the people?
And you'll have to come. You'll have to come on my show.
Yeah.
I'm definitely Slightly Offensive, so we can talk about crystals and demons.
Yeah, and
spirits
magic, and let's talk about space travel.
Hallucinogenics.
Oh.
We need to do it.
Okay.
I'm excited. Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys both very much for coming. I just want to say before I go, this is just my 2 cents I have to throw out there. I appreciate what Elijah had to say about incrementally adjusting your resistance to what's going on in the world today. I think that's a great idea. I would strongly recommend doing things like saving up money, trying to make sure you're prepared for whatever happens, and then you can kind of push back according to your own personal values. You guys may follow me on Twitter and minds.com at Sour Patch Lids.
I want to address just one quick super chat from Mike Dorio, who says that he's lost access to the website, but he's still being charged. There's an issue with PayPal that they can't fix, I suppose, and we are working to fix. But it's a weird time-gated thing where it's like the year anniversary when people signed up, something weird triggers. So we are working to fix that. At the same time, we are also working on implementing a new alternative system that will be resilient, and we're going to announce it once it's ready, and it's going to be fantastic because we want to make sure we're working with companies who believe in free speech. We want to, over the next year or so as we expand, separate ourselves from companies that hate us and start working towards and with companies that don't hate us. And that's our plan, which means there's going to be changes to membership. Not for, no one should really notice anything, but we're gonna have like a new, better system, and it's gonna be really, really awesome. So stay tuned for that. You guys are gonna love the news that we have. But that being said, we will see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye.